Hey everybody, welcome to the Know Your Gear podcast, episode 328. Hope everybody had a great week. It's Labor Day weekend, right? I like to say like I knew that. I found it out from watching the comments. I'm like, oh, it's a 3-day weekend. So it's a 3-day weekend. If you enjoy the 3-day weekend, if you get a 3-day weekend, I hope you guys enjoy that and have a good time with it. Let's see. Let's take a look at what we have going on. Okay, first things first, thank you everybody who comes early and leaves questions for me or subjects. I appreciate that very much. And the ones that send them throughout the week, and also super chats and putting questions first and all that stuff. I appreciate it so much. It makes the show what it is, which is just a weekly communication and talk about what you guys want to talk about. So lots of cool stuff with gear going on. So we'll probably talk about that. I'm going to start going through some of the first comments and questions I saw. And the first one, it's not the first one, but the first one I grabbed was from Jeremy, who says, hey, Phil, why doesn't Fender build more jazz basses with P bass necks? I've always preferred the look of the jazz bass, but can't get on with the thin nut width. You know, I don't know why Fender doesn't do it, but I can tell you the super easy fix for that, especially with Fender, not only aftermarket stuff, but if you're diehard Fender, you want the Fender, just go to stratosphere.com, stratosphere, phonetically correct, and or if you search them on Reverb and eBay, like Fender P-bass necks, search them on there, and you can always just buy one from them and stick it on your jazz bass and call it a day. That's what's great about that. Super easy to do. You can do it if you want a USA neck or a made in Mexico neck. Either way, you can get it. And so, I mean, I don't know why they don't do it, but the best thing about Fender is it's interchangeable stuff. As long as you got a Phillips head screwdriver, you can be a luthier when it comes to Fender products. What's it? My old joke. Now, depending on the Fender, of course, if you go too vintage far, this makes no sense. But currently, if you have a Phillips head screwdriver, you can completely disassemble an entire Fender instrument, pretty much. I mean, besides desoldering. And if it's an old vintage one, then you'll just use a flathead screwdriver. But you'll just be pretty vintage, or vintage correct reissue. So I don't know why they don't do it, but there's your answer. You could do it yourself, or try to find the weird versions that they've made over the years that do that, or if they have a current model. But I would just go get the neck you want and stick it on there. My main bass, so I own 4 bass guitars, and 2 of them are custom made for me that I absolutely love, and one is a Stu-Ham Urge bass that I just have because I'm a huge Stu-Ham fan. But my main bass, the bass I've had the absolute longest, is my Fender Jazz Deluxe bass. And a funny story about that was in 2004, I believe. That sounds right. I have to look at the headstock. I was at the NAMM show and they had this Jazz Deluxe bass. I already had one, by the way. I loved it so much I had one. But they had one in this beautiful orange that I'd never seen before. It was the first year I think Fender did that specific color. And I went to the booth and I wanted it, and the bass place had already bought it. The bass place, if you guys familiar with them, they're an online boutique bass dealer that happens to be in Arizona. And I happen to know the owner. And when they bought it, I reached out to him and said, hey, I want that bass. And they said, okay, stop by the shop. And I went and played the bass, and I absolutely loved the bass because it's the same bass as mine, but I did not love the neck. I don't know what it was. It just wasn't jiving with me. And I just felt like, I have to have this cool color. And so I bought it and brought it back to my shop and swapped the necks with the Jazz Deluxe bass neck that I loved. And to this day, I have that bass. It's my main bass, and it is exactly what I said it just said it is. It's another Jazz Deluxe bass neck on this Jazz Deluxe bass body. So there's proof that you can not only do it, I've done it, and my main bass is a mismatched bass and neck. And if you were to pull them apart and look, the whatever, the tracking serial numbers and stuff would not match up. The body is not correct to that neck. So, and then I eventually parted out the other bass so that there would be no confusion. I just sold off all the parts, which cumulatively you sometimes can make more. I think I did in that case. So, so there you go. So not only can you do it, I did it, and that's how I did it. But, so there you go. Get parts and do it yourself. Make your own. Or you can go to Warmoth, by the way, and other places too. I mean, just like I said, or aftermarket places. Okay, let's see. There's a Tom gave me a rank these guitars. It was like one of the first questions. It's a little tough. It says rank these guitars. So guys, let's all play, and ladies, gentlemen, and ladies and gentlemen, let's all play. He says rank these instruments: Tom Anderson, exotic, Sir, Fender, Gibson, PRS, Schecter. First, I got to tell you, the only exotic I ever played was Matt, my guitar teacher's exotic, which I absolutely love. But when I say I played it, I couldn't even tell you what it felt like other than I love the way it looked, and it was an awesome guitar. He did a video with me. I think if you go to the Boss Blues Driver video, I think that's the video we did on this channel together. If you go and look up Boss Blues Driver pedal, in that video he's playing that exotic, and I played it for a few minutes. So I have to be honest, Tom, I got to take exotic out of there to rank them with no experience or not even a memory of what they were, other than they were really cool looking, and I remember thinking nice things about it. Tom Anderson, Sir, Fender, Gibson, PRS, and Schecter. Rank them? You mean by price? How much I love them? How much I think look, I know this is one of the things that I hate talking about, because by price, like if I was going to guess pricing, it's going to be like Tom Anderson, Sir, PRS. Maybe could go flip on that. It could be PRS, Sir Tom Anderson, but either way, they're expensive, then Gibson, then Fenders, and then Schecter's going to be least expensive, even if you consider USA custom. But that's where it's always funny to me. These lists are kind of funny to me because if you were telling me out of all the guitars I've owned and currently own, of those brands, which one do I like the best? Fender is probably where I always kind of gravitate towards in that list. Then probably Schecter, then Gibson, then PRS, then Tom Anderson, and Sir. I don't know. See, I don't know. Hope that was. I don't know. Like I said, but I'd love to see your comments. What you guys think? The problem is that, like I said, I found specific guitars that I love in certain brands. Ironically, I have my Mira here. This is one of my favorite guitars. Of course, you guys know Nathan made me a PRS, which I've now just decided to tell everybody that it's not a PRS. It's the guitar Nathan made me, because it feels totally different and it's its own thing. And sometimes when I talk about my favorite PRS, they're like, you mean the guitar Nathan made you? I'm like, well, that one's special and different. But like everybody knows, I've had this Mira forever. I've had this since 2013. I still love it. And it's at the time, it was the least expensive core PRS you could buy. Right? And I have not been able, so you guys know, you guys watch this channel. One thing you should pay attention to when you watch YouTube channels that are gear centric, like my channel, is pay attention to how many times these channels, like me, I'll pick on myself. Pay attention to how many times, not companies sending me product, okay? That's a different thing altogether. I'm talking about when you see me buying guitars and you see me like having them and then flip them and get another one. A lot of times what that is like I've flipped a lot of PRSs and Gibsons on this channel. In other words, I bought them and I don't have them and I bought another one. And what that is me searching for the right one. So in PRS world, the Mira, it's just what I love. I have bought the special. I've bought all these expensive PRSs, and I just can't find a PRS that I bond with as much as the Mira. And then the S2s are probably close seconds to that. And so that statement. Same thing with like high-end guitars like Sir. I have not found a Sir to bond with yet. I like them. I've owned a couple. I'm now Sir-less again, but that probably won't last. I'll probably eventually get another one. But my favorite Sir, so you know, is probably the Pete Thorne, the one, I played his. I really like them. But it's still not the guitar that I want, not the one I'm looking for. So I think that's the problem with like sorting these brands for me. It's like, I love Gibsons, but I've yet to find a Gibson Les Paul that I like as much as my 1SG. In fact, that ES335 is great. And I have the Firebird, and there's all these great Gibsons, but really they're just a search to find a guitar that's as good as this 1SG that I bought that I got a smoking deal on. So it's funny. That's why I said price never seems to equate to anything that's tangible. My Schecter, green Schecter that I currently have, I absolutely love. It's just how it works. You just find what you like and you love it. So, okay. What do we got next? We have, hold on. Brian says this is his first time on the live show. That's great. Congratulations. I said congratulations. Do I say that to you? I think I just say thank you, right? Thank you for hanging out. But thank you for hanging out. Okay. Susan said, slice the back of my fretting finger hand. This and open. Wow, this week. Broken glass. Oh, really need. It says you really need the. I says fill fix, but I think it means the the video fix, the KYG fix. But this is a good time to work on your slide work. It's funny. I had a teacher. And so, Susan, I just thought, obviously I wanted to say I'm sorry that you hurt yourself, but also get well soon kind of thing, right? But also to give you some part with you some information. I had a guitar teacher at the academy, and when sometimes students would break their wrist or sprain their wrist or break their finger or whatever, they would call him and say, I can't come to my lessons. And, obviously he needed the money, right? Teachers, that's how they make their money, teaching lessons. But that's not why he did this. I just want to be very clear. Ethic-wise, I would say he's one of the most ethical people I've ever worked with in my life. So I wanted you to not think about he just wanted them to keep coming to lessons. In fact, in some cases, he might have done them for free or a reduced rate. And I'm sure there were certain situations where he did that as well. But what he would say, which I thought was great, because he had such a huge passion for guitar, and I mean, my joke about him was he worked for me for 9 years, maybe 10, but 9 years. And my joke was I've never seen him without a guitar around him, ever, in his hand, on him, playing, ever. I'm not even joking. I wish that was a joke. And what he said was when somebody would sprain their finger or a wrist or whatever and they couldn't play, he would say, perfect opportunity to work on theory. And so they would do book stuff in the lesson, right? They would work on, theory and how the, notes worked and how, your modes and all kinds of stuff. Also, so I just think, like I said, take that opportunity. Don't go, if you can't play guitar because your hand's messed up. I totally understand that, but you might look at it as an opportunity to focus on something else that you've been probably putting on the wayside. It's not so exciting stuff, right? Maybe some mind training, so to speak, for your guitar playing. Or you could just get a slide, just play some slide stuff and work on open tunings and do other stuff. So basically what I'm saying is don't let it stop you from playing guitar, or advancing on the guitar. It's an opportunity. And when I saw you cut your hand and you said that, it made me think of that teacher and his advice. Telly Driver says, hey, I got some StewMac Golden Age Parsons Street humbuckers, Alnico 2s. In my Epiphone Sheraton, they seem a bit bright. Is that the guitar, the pickups? I've been messing with the pickup heights as well. So Alnico 2, as I've said, the fast, way easy kind of cheat method to think about the magnets, whether they're in humbuckers or in single coils, is Alnico 2 is going to be brighter than Alnico 5. Take that back. It's going to be darker than Alnico 5. Alnico 5 will be brighter. Alnico 8 will be even more bright. That's kind of like the way to think about it. The higher the number, the more bright it is. However, again, this is the problem with pickups, which is why people who are into pickups will make other people who are into pickups nuts, because to say one thing like that, such a broad stroke about pickups, I mean, I could also, if somebody said that like I just said it, I could also contradict, their statement by saying, oh yeah? Well, what about, right? What about the windings? What about how much wire is on there? What about the thickness of the wire? What about, how the variance in that? So there's a ton of things going on. But I will tell you is that in my experience, hollow body guitars like your Sheraton are on the brighter side. I did a video talking about hollow bodies. I think it has a clickbaity title, and And in there, I talk about hollow bodies being kind of bright. And of course, what I find is that a lot of people, a lot of players, always for some reason think of hollow guitars, big hollow body guitars, as being big and full and bassy. And my experience is they're not those things. They're definitely on the brighter side. Me personally, I think a Gibson SG with the same pickups sounds darker and warmer than the ES235. That's just my experience with my ear and playing the guitars on, especially on average. If we're playing a game of 50 SGs and 50 335s, that's where I would think that would land. So the guitar is probably bright. The Alnico 2 is definitely a softer magnet, and it's a little darker sounding, so it probably is helping that situation. One of the problems, though, I also find with the Alnico 2s, and especially the Parsons Street pickup, it's basically like a PAF style pickup, but Alnico 2, so it's going to be a lighter sound. Lighter being it's not going to push the amp as hard. That could be it too. It could be your amp and that pickup combination. One thing I definitely suggest every single guitar player to own is an EQ pedal. Buy yourself, I don't care, the cheapest EQ pedal ever. Buy the Behringer one. The worst case about cheap EQ pedals is they're going to be noisy, okay? But for what you're going to use it for, if it's a cost thing, just deal with the noise. But an EQ pedal is a very good way to just solve problems with your rig and then help you understand what is the real culprit in that rig. So, for instance, let's say you took your guitar and you think the pickups are the problem or the guitar is the problem. Run it through an EQ pedal into the amp and adjust the sliders ever so lightly, and maybe even, like I said, the gain on the pedal to kind of adjust in the sound you want. And let's say you get there and you go, oh, it sounds great. I like a little bit more mids and I like pushing the amp just a little bit harder. Maybe the permanent fix for that is a different pickup with more mids and a boost pedal, or just use the damn EQ pedal, right? It's there. But here's what's funny. Let's say it still doesn't solve the problem. You're like, man, it's still super bright. Take that same EQ pedal, now plug the guitar straight into the amp and run that EQ pedal into the effects loop of the amp. Start EQing the amp. And then if you notice, the problem starts going away. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, maybe it's your amp is the problem because the EQ and the amp isn't it doesn't have the frequency response you want. It's a really weird thing. Chasing tone, it isn't easy. Otherwise, everyone would just have one thing and it would be just pretty straightforward, right? It's what's in your head. I always tell people tone starts in your head. That's how I started, at least. Well, let me start there. The idea of the sound, it's in my head first. Like, I don't plug into something and go, that's a sound. And I go, I love this sound, and that's my sound now. It's for some reason it's in my head. It's maybe a little bit of what I've heard over the years from other guitar players. Maybe it's a little bit of this. I like, the warmth of the Eric Johnson, Eric Johnson's notes. I like how round they sound. Joe Bonamassa's kind of got that thing going on too. But I also like, the thump of like a slap bass player, and so there's these tones that are in my head, and overall, like when I'm talking about a clean channel, and then I have that idea in my head what it sounds like, and now I'm just recreating it. And what I've learned is I can recreate it whether I have a little inexpensive $100 modeling amp, or I can do it if you give me a $6,000 rig, and it doesn't really matter because I just find that sound, whatever the sound I want in every kind of rig. But then from there, I learn that, some rigs fight me less to get that sound, or let me have exactly what I want and not just a version of what I want. So that's just some insight onto that. But the best part about this is I'm not shocked that your Alnico 2 Parsons pickups and your hollow body are producing a bright sound. It's not shocking to me. So another thing you can do, except for it's a big pain in the ass because it's in the hollow body, change out the tone controls, maybe switch out the capacitors to a different capacitor. I mean, there's things like that. If it was just a solid body guitar and it was a 5-second fix, I would say swap the caps and use the tone knob some more. You can still use your tone knob, but my guess is there's probably a very inexpensive capacitor that's going to be really aggressive. That's what I noticed when they use really inexpensive capacitors in guitars. They're aggressive. It's like all of a sudden it's like this, and then it's like this back again. And that sweet spot's really hard to find. But try to find it again. kind of think about what you want that guitar to sound like with that amp. Maybe adjust that tone control until you find the spot, and then go from there. Like I said, just do it that way. I hope that makes some sense. It made sense to me. It's one of those things like I have no idea. Okay. I like Cav. Kezilla says, I want to know what tone is. Dude, as soon as I read that, I could hear the song. I want to know what tone is. Right? Oh, I'm trying to think. It's What Love Is, right? Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I know the song. So the song is, I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. Is that the lyrics? So it's like that would be the Weird Al, right? I want to know what tone is. I want you to show me. Let's see. Frank says, please don't buy the Behringer. It doesn't have a neutral place like an indent or something to let you know it's center and get something better. Look, I'm totally with you, Frank. Better is the way to go, but everyone has different budgets, and I've used the Behringer pedal, and I agree with what you're saying, but also, you can pick one up sometimes used for $30, $25, and then what I found is, like I said, it's so easy to tell everybody, just go get yourself a really nice EQ. But in some cases, not only is it a cost issue, sometimes it's an experiment issue. It's nicer to put your toe in the water than jump in sometimes. But I agree with you. But like I said, I always kind of that's why I always say, you can start as cheap as you want, go as expensive as you want. I don't think anybody regrets buying expensive stuff, except unless you don't use it. Okay. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, Patrick says he loves Eric Johnson's tone. Me too. There's just something about Eric Johnson. I think I've told the story. There's memories as you get older, and as things change, right? So when first time you start watching MTV, you're watching musicians versus listening to them. To me, it was a very impactful moment to see them versus hear them. You'd always, people talk about, as, back in the day, but it's not about back in the day. It's about the experiences of the times. And so when you used to hear music, you would picture, just like when you heard a voice on the radio, you'd picture what they look like. And then you'd see the band for the first time and go, that's not what I thought you look like. And so when you got to see them, that was kind of an experience. But the big thing for me, and I told everybody, this is the last memory I have of hearing and not seeing something. In other words, not having the resources, not like today where you can just Google it or go on YouTube and watch it. But the strongest memory I have, the last memory I have of hearing a musician and not seeing them was Yngwie Malmsteen. The first time I heard Yngwie on cassette, I was mesmerized. I didn't know what was going on. And I love this story because everybody always thinks, because he was so fast. Look, I get the fast. That wasn't confusing to me. That was practice, right? I get it. The guy didn't date much and he played his scales every day. Okay, that concept I got. I'd already seen Racer X or heard Racer X, so I get, and how fast you could play. What I couldn't figure out listening to it was the violin swell thing that he was doing, right? I just didn't understand. The pick noise would disappear. All of a sudden it was like a violin. And I was like, what is that? Is it an effect? Like how? And it had no starting point. I didn't know if he had a box on the floor that was doing that. I didn't know if it was this, what was he doing? Like doing something with the pick? Was he, right? How was he doing this sound? And the first time I saw him, he's using his pinky and he's rolling the volume control, and he's rolling the volume control off. And when his pick hits the string, there's no volume, and then he volumes back on, and that's what's giving you that quick bow sound, and to me it was like a violin. Like I said, it was just no pick attack. And that was amazing. I like that because one, that's just a memory for me. So it's just fun to go down memory lane, but also Eric Johnson did that with Cliffs of Dover to me. He was one of the first players I heard when he was playing really fast. Again, he was another guitar player. All of a sudden, I heard him and I go, man, I can't hear the pick. Like I can't hear what did I think Paul Gilbert called it, the thwap, the thwap sound. I'm pretty sure it was Paul Gilbert said the word. there you couldn't hear the thwap. You couldn't hear, like, I understood, the picking technique, digga 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 digga, but I couldn't hear it. All I could hear was the notes, and I was like, how is he doing that? So then here's what's funny about Eric Johnson. I go, oh, he must be doing a volume trick. And then I learned from later, obviously, you learn, no, it's just the way he does pick and it's the way he plays, and he's so light with the right hand. It's super light. And like I said, that's what I love about, well, one, I didn't love the fact that I couldn't know. I much prefer today's day and age. That's a funny story and all, but it kind of sucks. Right? It's just literally weeks and months of you tormenting yourself trying to figure out what somebody's doing. And to be honest with you, now it's so great to go ahead and Google it and go, oh yeah, that's what he's doing. That's great. I'll work on that or I won't. But Eric Johnson, I love that same thing. I love that pick attack where, again, you don't hear the pick attack. It's really, really nice. I love it. Okay. We have another subject question. We have Karen says, hey, Phil, building an SG kit guitar, need hardware, nut, tuners, bridge, stop tail. Would like to buy from some company, if possible, recommendations. So I'm going to go ahead and say to go to guitarfetish.com. I know, what a name, huh? And let's go ahead. Guitar Fetish is where I go and get inexpensive parts. I have a kit guitar build I mentioned briefly a couple months ago that I mentioned that I'm doing a kit build video, and it's not so much about the kit, it's about this kind of like this idea, it's gonna be fun, right? It's a fun video. And I bought all the parts for that guitar from Guitar Fetish, and it's great. I did not do the video yet because as most of you around the world are experienced, most of us are having a super, super hot summer, and the summer here was so much exponentially hotter in Arizona than normal, which is saying a lot because it's hot as hell here, literally is the saying, right? But the AC unit in my shop can only bring the temperature down 20 degrees in a perfect scenario, right? So it can bring down 20 degrees. That's great, but it was 119. So it's 99 in my shop, and I can't run AC when I'm doing work. So it gets hot. So I work in the mornings and it works fine. However, like a video that's coming out this week, you'll see in the video, I mentioned it was like 103 in the shop. It was probably a little hotter, but the thermostat said 103. So, I have certain videos like that won't be finished until, like now. It's starting to, now we're chilling out. We're going back to the hundreds again. There you go. Yeah, it's nice. It's like I thought about putting turn it into a sauna in there. Like somebody said, a sauna. I can make a sauna, but but Guitar Fetish is where I got all the parts for that telly build, that kit build, and it was easy, and I got exactly what I wanted, and they were very reasonable. So that's my suggestion. Others might have other suggestions that they've used. I always caution everybody, please give suggestions. It's a community thing, but always try to suggest things you've used, not things you saw or things you think might work out. I try to stay with everything that I've done because I'm not saying that's right. It's just it's a lot easier for me to sleep at night if I'm like, well, if they have a bad experience, I mean, at least that was something I tried, first. So he's like, how hot is it? It's so hot. I don't even know how you say that. It's so hot that I don't even know. Yeah, Unfreaking Believable is like, we broke records consecutive days, 110 plus. Yeah, it was like 30 days, 110 plus in Arizona. It's warm. It's a warm place. That's just to say the least. It's warm. But the AC is cold, and that's what matters right now. Okay. Next. That was a great question, by the way. Thank you for the question. John's question was, do I think that Andrea, I think that's how you say it, D'Andrea Pro Plec guitar picks are the same as the Taylor 65 Thermex Pro guitar picks? Let's take a look, because I'm familiar with both those. I'm familiar with believe it or not, the Taylor picks. Let's click that. Let's click this. And whoa, how many picks do you get? A dozen? Oh, okay, let's share the picks. Here you go. This is the picks you're talking about. For those, I could go and look at the Taylor picks right now, but for those that are watching this, it's basically looks like a tortoiseshell style pick, and that's exactly what the Taylor pick looks like. My guess is I would go to the materials and look at the materials, but here's what I can tell you. Are they the same pick? I don't know. So here's what I do know. There wasn't any... Last time I was at Taylor, there wasn't any machine making picks that I saw. And so as far as I know, they're not making picks, but they could be. But it's not uncommon for most manufacturers to order picks and materials with their branding on it. So it could be just, rebranded. The kind of logic is, why not rebrand it with your brand? You have a loyal following, especially Taylor. Taylor guitars, so you guys know, I've said this before, they have the highest... What is it? Customer. I want to say retention. That's not the word. What do they have the highest customer? They have the highest customer loyalty. They're rated one of the highest loyalty brands in the guitar world, Taylor guitars. Customers are extremely loyal to them. And I've talked about Elixir strings having that same thing. They have really high customer loyalty to them. So it's very common for brands like that to have their product that they buy, have it repackaged in their branding because, hey, you're a loyal customer and you want it. And there you go. So I don't know for sure, but I would say, here's what I will tell you. You could probably call them and they'll tell you. I don't find most companies are trying to be elusive about stuff like that. It's just they just have the product restamped, or they might even have it specifically specified different. And so they'll tend to tell you that too. They'll say, yeah, it's the same product, but we asked for this difference, and that happens sometimes too. It's real popular to do that, to spec a product slightly different and then say, yeah, it's made specifically for us for that reason. So if anyone happens to know for sure, please put it in the comments. Like I said, if you're guessing like me, I already guessed. So I guess we could have multiple guesses, but I'd rather have a real answer. So if you know the real answer, put it out there. If you have guesses, I beat you to the guess today. Okay. Let's grab some super chats. Let me grab a couple of those. Okay. My screen is not refreshing. It's weird. It's weird that I have to refresh it every time. It does that every once in a blue moon. And there was a blue moon this week. So that's why it's doing it, because it was once in a blue moon. You couldn't set up a bad dad joke like that. I just did it on a whim. If you guys don't know, Wednesday this week, there was a blue moon. And then literally I said once in a blue moon. And I just realized what that saying means. I had no idea. I've been saying that saying, like a lot of sayings that you just say because your parents said them. I'm sure my mom said it to me a couple of times. That's like once in a blue moon. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Now I just not only said it, but now because of this week, it makes sense. If you guys aren't laughing at that, I appreciate you just being kind to me about it, because I was this days old when I learned what once in a blue moon means. So what is it? Hey, does anyone know the number? Put in the comments how often is the blue moon? Is it once a year? Is it once a decade? What's the deal on that? I just know it happened this week, and now I know what the saying means. So let's go on to something that's more guitar related. Vim69 says, Phil, now that you have a Heritage Les Paul, will you be selling any of your Gibsons? How does that compare to your R9? So it's a great question. The Heritage video is soon, because I can tell you, like, obviously the Evertune video. So if you guys are patrons or members, you've already seen the Evertune video. It's done. It's just not released yet. That will be releasing. The Heritage video they have not seen, but they'll be seeing it soon, and it'll be released again shortly. Those videos are teed up, as you can imagine. And the Heritage Les Paul, good question. Will I be selling the R9? Well, here's the deal with, I'm not going to be selling any guitars right now. The guitars like that, like the Gibson R9, are super expensive, and the super expensive guitars obviously are not as worth as much as they were just a year ago. They're taking a hit a little bit. And I don't want to treat gear like the stock market, but I've been around long enough to know that if you have a high-end piece of gear, it's you put it out right now, you just need to wait. It's going to take a long time. So I'm not eager to list it, is basically like I said. The R9, guitars like that, you either got to give them away a little bit, which is fair because that's the market right now, right? Slowly in the buyer's market. And if you don't do that, then you're going to be sitting for a long time. So sit for a long time. What I will tell you, I hate to, kind of give away the video, but the Heritage takeaway really is broken down into two things. Okay. So it's about what you value more. Me personally, I don't even want to say if the Heritages are better or the Gibson is better, because to me, that's not even worth talking about for this part. What's worth talking about is it has everything the Gibson has, and it's less money. So if you're looking for the specifications, quality, and feel of the Gibson, I think the Heritage gets you there for a little less money. Again, we're talking about two very expensive guitars, but at least it's less money. The flip side of that is you would get more of that money back if you end up selling the R9 later versus the Heritage later. So obviously the resale value on a Gibson is going to be always stronger than a Heritage. But there's a twist to what I just said, and I'm not going to say it today. So I'm just going to let you know there. That's all discussed in the video. But there's a thing I discussed in the video that I think is relevant, and it made me, that experience with the guitar really made me kind of recognize that. So I'll be talking about that. But other than that, if I could pick one, right? And again, let's play apples to apples where it's the Heritage cost. Because remember, I bought my R9 and Heritage sent out the Les Paul. So of course, what would I rather have? The one sent out to me or the one I paid, an insane amount of money for? Well, obviously, who wouldn't want the one sent out to you? But given now that I've had my hands on both and was able to compare them, if I walked in a store and was able to play them side by side, which was not a luxury I had, and they were priced what they are right now, each, I would pick the Heritage every time. Absolutely. No questions. There's nothing I could justify. Again, we're not saying better. I'm just saying there's nothing I can justify in the $1,000 to $2,000, maybe $3,000 more price to take me to the Gibson that would make me pull that trigger. So there you go. I don't know. There. So, see, what's funny is, I see, I'm going to get it down this wrong debate. Brian S. says, Heritage pickguard, not a fan. See, I'm the opposite. And I talk about this in the video. I actually think it's far superior looking. I think it's because, to me, it makes sense. Like, it seems like, it's kind of like G&L to me. Some people don't like the G&L stock. I totally get that. There's certain things about G&Ls they don't like. But I do agree with G&L's statements that it's like the evolution of where Leo Fender was going. I really think some of the aesthetics on Heritage, especially the pickguard, right? I think, like, here's what's, I'm totally giving away the video before I go on, but maybe you guys deserve it. The Heritage, here's something interesting about the Heritage. Here's my takeaway, Brian. And again, this is great. We can be friends and disagree on stuff like this. The Heritage headstock to me is ugly as ass. It's not as cool. I like the Gibson headstock way better. However, the Heritage headstock to me functions way better. Like, it's by design of function. So to me, it's funny because to me, the pickguard on the Heritage is more ornate, right? And just really, like, I think it's less streamlined. It's beautiful. I think it actually follows the lines of the guitar and makes more sense. And then the headstock's not sexy like the Gibson headstock, where I don't like it as much. But what's funny is, if given the choice, which is what I was given, out of the two guitars to go, what do I care about? I think I care about, like, I like having the nicer pickguard, and I like having a better functioning headstock. That's what I like. I wish the headstock on the Gibson functioned as well as the Heritage headstock, but it just doesn't. What I mean function, as you guys know, is the string pull is more straight on the Heritage, and that's something I appreciate. But again, it's, and I don't know if it's because I don't like the Heritage headstock as much because it's just not, I don't like it as much, or it's not as beautiful to me, or if it's just the years and years of Gibson marketing doing its job with all the rock stars. But there's, like I said, there's things I like about it. There's things I don't like about it. And that's kind of where the video is going. You can kind of get the sense of where I'm going with this video. Is I'm not going with the whole, this is going to be, blow away Gibson and F Gibson and just go heritage. I just couldn't land there with it. But I think where I landed, I think the video will be insightful, because I came out the video, if you're like me, where you don't have access to heritage in most cases and you have no experience playing them, because that's where I was. When I bought my Gibson R9, I was lucky enough to actually walk in a store and play a couple of them and compare them, the Gibson R9s. But even I couldn't, at least I've played enough Gibsons to know, okay, well, this is what that's going to be like. Where the heritage, you maybe had your hand on one once. So hopefully the video will be insightful that way, to help to get you at least understanding what I saw and what I see and what I like and maybe what I don't like, and maybe that helps you. I don't know. Again, they're expensive purchases, that's for sure. We have Chris. Chris says, hey, hoping to catch as much of the live as I can before Metallica in Glendale. He's going to see Metallica tonight in Glendale, Arizona. And so, he sent a thing on the patron thing. I saw it, that he's in a Know Your Gear t-shirt. If you're at the Metallica concert tonight and you see a guy, his name's Chris, by the way. If you see a guy in a Know Your Gear shirt, that's Chris. You know what? Take a picture of him and send it to me. Maybe I'll send you a tuner or some pics or something, or a cool card or something. When I say that, it's like, if one of you send it, I'll send something, like worth $30-$40. If 10 of you send me something, you're all getting something for $5. Right? If 100 of you send it, I think we'll figure that out. Everybody's getting 2 free pics, but I'll send you something for doing it. I think it's funny. So thank you, Chris, for supporting the channel and wearing it to the Metallica concert, man. I appreciate that. And enjoy the show, man. It's a great show tonight. I think that tonight it's like Pantera's opening for him. I think Sunday it's Five Finger Death Punch. Okay. Every Note Counts says, is there a downside? Is there a downside to stringing a 4-string bass to handle BAD? So in other words, he wants to string, or they want to string a 4-string bass like a 5-string without the G string. He said that, like a 5-string without G string. I don't like the 5-string neck width. I totally understand that. So I played for years a 7-string bass. This is absolutely true, especially when I was playing at the church and stuff. I would play the 7-string. However, I slowly switched not to a 6-string, but to 2 5-strings, and I would have one 5-string with that was B to E, and I'd have one 5-string that was E to G. So in other words, one had an extra high string, one extra had an extra low string. You absolutely can do it with a 4-string bass. There is no downside. There's just a couple things that you're going to have to know. One is obviously with the bigger strings, more tension. You are going to have to tighten the truss rod a little bit. The truss rod should be able to handle that. You didn't say what kind of bass, but barring that it's not just a garbage neck, it's going to be fine. But you're definitely going to have to file the nut slots. The B string is going to be significantly bigger than your E string. The other 3 slots are not going to need much filed out, but the B string definitely for sure. So just be prepared. Again, I always kind of suggest this as a suggestion when people do radical things to their guitars or basses like this with their gauge of strings and doing crazy things and cutting the nuts. I always tell people, don't take the existing nut and cut it and shape it. If you can take it out, 'cause it's got to come out anyways, right? Take it out and then get a new nut, cut a new nut. Okay. So either have it done by somebody or do it yourself. Cut the new nut, drop it in, set up the bass, and then if you ever change the bass back, you have the original nut to go right back. So it's a lot easier. So there you go. So there you go. All right. Ray wants to know, what's a good action height for a D28 Martin guitar? It's a preference thing, but I run my action pretty low on my acoustics because I am a sissy who cannot play acoustic with like I have friends that play 13 gauge strings and the action's like 3-4 millimeters off the 12th fret, and it's like, just go. I can't do it. I play the electric, and then I switch to a bass, and then I switch back to acoustic, and it's because of that, it's just a nightmare for me. So I like to keep things simple. Some acoustics I have 12 gauge strings, some I have 11s. I generally don't use 10s. But I'll use 11s a lot, 11 gauge. like 11 to 52, I think. And I will run my acoustic with 11s at 2 millimeters off the 12th fret, just like I would off an electric guitar. And if I run 12s, I will run it even actually lower because the string tension is increased, so the string is not oscillating as much. It's not going to kiss the frets as much. So either way, I keep the action low. I couldn't recommend that to you, so you know I have years and years of experience setting up people's guitars and their acoustic guitars, and I would say that is not the norm. Most acoustic players, they do want their action low, but they do not want it to be buzzy or too low, and they don't want the strings to be too light. The general rule is 12 gauge set, 12 to like 52 or 12 to 56, and run the action whatever off of, you can find factory spec from Martin and Taylor and go off that. I find that usually works. Or they want it just below that because everybody's trying to find that compromise. So there you go. Sent of a Wheelchair Pillow says, would you ever do a remote appearance show? So that's essentially when I went to Sweetwater, I did, that's what that is. Are you talking about like a interaction where like there's people there? It wouldn't work. It's too much going on. I love doing this. It's easy. It's easy. I don't know if it's easy. It's fun. However, as friends have come on the show over the years, notice, like I said, a lot of them don't come on twice. My wife did the podcast with me. So you guys know it's on the second channel if you want to listen to it, or if you want, if you're listening to Spotify, iTunes, all those places on there too. It was she got questions asked by the patrons and the members, and then we did this podcast. After doing it, she told me she was exhausted from it. And what's funny is exactly that. This is kind of exhausting. It doesn't seem like it. Talking is not hard. It's I don't know what you guys are asking me, and I'm looking constantly for the questions and trying to stay on task and keep moving forward. And so if there was other things going on, I could tell you right now, it'd be bad. It's really hard now. So you guys know I've talked about this before, and I only say this again because maybe insight is helpful. What I'm looking at right now, you guys are looking at me. I have a screen to my right to me, and I see my face. That's why I see me in real time. That's telling me the feed. So I'm paying attention to the feed. It's telling me, it's giving me all the cool information about my bandwidth and how much the internet, how much internet I have, and whether or not you guys are seeing it all right, and all that stuff. And it also lets me control what you see, whether you see the web or this or a screen, you name it. So then to the left of me is the real feed, what you guys are all typing on right now. Okay, so if you're live, if you're watching the rebroadcast, it really doesn't matter. And then, of course, I have another screen that has the moderators on it they can be sending me stuff. Okay, and they send me stuff. Like Brian let me know that there's no merch listed in our description, which I'll correct, and all that stuff. And then of course I have all the super chats on the screen. I think I said that and the thing. But here's the important part. When I answer a question like I'm answering with you, what I do is I have to immediately get out of this thing that you're looking at, because you guys are all chatting on that side, right? And I'll tell you how funny this is. You can catch me doing it every once in a while. I'm talking, and all of a sudden I'm like, that's not me thinking. That's me all of a sudden reading what you guys are saying. So it's almost like I gotta read your question, get the hell out of that screen. Sorry, I keep saying hell a lot today. Get out of that screen, and then see nothing, because I can't be looking at that. So yeah, if I was doing a live interaction thing, it would just be crazy. Trying to keep your attention, or my attention, going this long. Like I said, I kind of said it earlier. I go, it's easy. Actually, like what I really meant to say is it's not easy. As silly as that sounds, it's like, YouTubers do this all the time. But I've done other YouTuber shows, as you guys know, and jumped on them. They're not like this. It's like a really low, most everybody's show, which I really enjoy about all the shows. A lot of them go a little slower, like they hang, they kind of talk with each other. They kind of hit a question, right? Where this is like rapid fire. To me, it reminds me of taking tests. And everybody who pops on the show says the same thing. They said it's like taking a test. It's like, what do you know? Answer me. And so I find that fun, but it gets a little much. But I would love to do a remote hang or something like that. We talked about that. And then we did a couple, and then COVID happened and we stopped, and maybe we can actually do it back again. I don't know. I did some restring events. I'd love to do stuff like that again. We'll see. Like I said, it's one of those things. I hate to promise something and then just not, follow through on it. So all I'll say is thank you for putting that on my radar. It's definitely going to permeate in my head, and then if it comes into anything, you'll know now that you're the one that kind of got that going. Okay. Lewis says, hey, I want something like the Helix Pod Go, but heard their other modelers are the same for much cheaper. That's what he's saying. There are other modelers that are the same for much cheaper. What am I missing out of the Go? The New X and other brands. I'm not like a lot of the channels that do all those, pedal videos every week, 50 pedal videos, 50, units. And I'm not a channel, so you guys don't confuse this. I'm not a channel. I've never said this either way, by the way. I'm not a channel who only does what I like. Not even close. I do stuff I don't like all the time. I do whatever. I do what I like. That's when I'm lucky to do it. I do what you guys suggest, even if I don't like it, or better yet, in the video I discover I don't like it. I still kind of come at it, because one thing I can share with you guys is what I try to come at every time is like on the deep dives. I don't try to approach every guitar as like, here's what I like about it. I try to approach like, here's what you should know about it that will maybe help you make a decision if you're going to buy it, or have it and maybe don't know something about it. So that's kind of how I come at that. But when it comes to pedals and stuff, I just don't get on those, so I don't know. I use the HX Stomp. I don't have one anymore, but I used that for a while. I love it. Kind of regret getting rid of it. Got the Tone X. I bought that. I would totally go back to the HX Stomp. I'm not even sure, because I haven't A/B'd them. If somebody tells me that the Tone X sounds better than the HX Stomp, you're probably right. But not everything is about that for me, right? Sometimes it's just about, like I said, how it works with my creativity and what I do with it. I like Line 6 product. I think it sounds good and it works good, and that's what I like about it. And it's also a perceptionary thing. See, here's where it gets tricky. To me, Line 6 product is obtainable. I'm not going to say affordable or cheap. I'm not going to say that. But to me, it's obtainable. In other words, it's product that I'm comfortable buying at those price points, where New X and all those guys make great stuff. And I've done their amp, and that was really cool. But I haven't tried their boards and stuff. My experience in the past, before YouTube, was when I would try like the cheap Digitech stuff, the cheap Zoom stuff. Everything works fine, but I just didn't love it. So to that advice, I would, listen if the community's got any input. I personally think if you're looking at the Helix or the Pod Go, I like them. So I would say go with them. They're what I picked when I was using that type of product. Jay says, hello from Chandler, Arizona. Love your content. You revisited the Malmsteen Strat, and I enjoyed the scalping. How do you like it compared to the Blackmore Strat, which has more graduated scalping? I have not compared it to the Ritchie Blackmore Strat. I don't know. I don't even think I've ever played that Strat. It's never come through my hands as either something I repaired or something I've played or owned. I do like the scalloping. I'm not sure what happened. I still have the Malmsteen Strat, so you guys know I didn't get rid of it. So the video that he's talking about, Jay's talking about, is I did a video which I thought would be fun. I've done a couple since then, where I buy something I didn't like a long time ago, give it a try, see if I like it again. The Malmsteen Strat, I love the pickups. They were my favorite pickups for noiseless, right? As the noiseless pickups go, they're the only noiseless pickups I like. Now the one I have is the DiMarzio HS whatever 2s or 3s or whatever they call those Malmsteen pickups. I loved the scallop fretboard on the guitar. I like the guitar in general, and I really liked it so much that I ordered a guitar with scalloping. I just don't know where we are with that. so I will. It's one of those things where, like I said, I have a pretty decent relationship with Brandon at Kiesel. He takes care of me really good, and I don't tend to like, hey, where are we at with that stuff? Especially right now, he's doing me a special, I don't want to say a favor, but doing something fun. Somebody mentioned earlier, I saw it briefly. Somebody said they just got a Delos copper penny Kiesel, which is like what I have there. And that's awesome. One, that's cool that you got that guitar. And because that's my, that's this exclusive color for me, or it's a color that they hold for me, which is really cool. I think I let this cat out of the bag. I don't remember if I did. Here's what I did. I had a Daphne Blue headless Delos that I absolutely love. Ralph currently has it. Now he loves it. He actually says it's his favorite guitar out of all the guitars he owns. So you know. I got rid of it to him. Because I'm fortunate enough to have this relationship with the Kiesel guys. In other words, where I can talk to them and we can work on cool ideas, like when I did the copper penny metallic Delos. They're making me this exact guitar headless, so I'll have one of each. So same pickups, same pickguard, same color, rosewood, not roasted maple neck, for no particular reason, just I wanted them identical. And it will be identical in every way, same wiring, everything. So they're basically making, I'll have two copper penny Delos guitars, one headless and one headed, I guess is what you're going to call it, right? I should call one head and one tails. That's what we'll call them. I'm going to name them. That's head and the other one's tails. So that's I don't know if they put priority on that to make that for me. And the other one with the scallop neck is slower now. I'm not sure. So, but to answer your question, I still like the scalloped. I have not tried the Ritchie Blackmore yet. Okay. Okay, Scent of a Wheelchair Pillow says, tuning keys on my very nice guitar are sticky, jumpy, etc. When I try to fine-tune things, what can I do to smooth out the motion action on these? And they are sealed. You're saying they're sticky and jumpy. Like if you said they were loose feeling, sometimes you can tighten the screw on top of the tuning key head. And so if you look at the construction of a tuning key, essentially you have the shaft, and then you have the actual tuning peg, the thing you turn, the head of it. And then there's on top of it, on a lot of them, there's a screw, and then there's a nylon washer. Usually there's a metal retainer washer or retainer there, and then a nylon washer. A lot of times it's going to be white. That's why it's white, by the way. It's made of nylon because it's lubricated. And if it's tight, sometimes you can loosen that screw, or if it's loose, you can tighten that screw. Sometimes that will fix that problem the way it feels. Generally, that's just how it feels. It doesn't really make the gear itself sloppy or messy. In your particular case, it sounds to me like the gear is the issue. And that could be because it's not a high ratio. In other words, it's not like 18-1. Maybe it's like 12-1 or a lower gear ratio, and it kind of feels a little wonky there. Or it could be because it's garbage, right? There's a lot of garbage tuning keys, for sure. That is a real common thing. So I don't know. You didn't tell me what, guitar and what price range and stuff is, but I mean, I don't know if there's anything you can do to fix the tuning key if it's not that as easy as turning the screw on the top. If it's a sealed key, in my experience, there's not a whole lot to repair inside the tuning keys. It's almost impossible to disassemble most of them. Spurzells would be one exception. You can disassemble a Spurzell down to every component and then put it back together. And you can even make it lefty or righty. I don't know if you know that. It's a fun fact about Spurzell. You can swap the angles. You can, like I said, disassemble the key and swap directions, where the tuning head is and all that stuff. But most keys are kind of all sealed up and inside, and just what it is. The good news is you can get really great tuning keys, locking tuning keys for $70 pretty much anywhere. So, and even less than that sometimes. Greg says, I have no idea where this is going. Philosophically, several beers deep, speaking, do you think the identity of a guitar at the most basic level is contained in its neck or body? This is an interesting question. I'm interpreting it, right? Obviously, where I think you're going with this is the identity of the guitar. In other words, I think it's in the neck. I think I understand what you're saying. To me, a guitar, and I've said this before, it's all about the neck. Obviously, if the body's poking you and it's not comfortable, I mean, there's issues there. But a lot of people talk about the aesthetics of a guitar. I used to think that way. I used to say, in your eyes, then in your ears. I used to say it all the time. That was like a thing I said forever. First you fall in love with the way you see the guitar, and then the way you play it and hear it and stuff. That is probably true for most new guitar players and most guitar players that are still in their majority of their journey to discover what they love about the physical instrument, not just playing it, but the guitar. At this point, every guitar I love, it's too broad. Most of the guitars I love are ugly as hell. The Mirror, and if you have a Mirror and you love it, I no offense, but this guitar is ugly. I mean, there's a reason why I've been trying to replace it. Like I said, I've had it now for over 10 years as a main guitar for me. And like I said, to the point where I wore the frets out on it. And I love a lot of things about it. I love the way it plays, I love the way it feels. I hate the fact that the neck needs adjustment all the time. I have to adjust the neck pretty regular on that. That's why there's no truss rod cover on it. So, a fun little funny story was Jean at Paul Reed Smith saw it in so many of the videos, and one day she sent me a nice message and she said, "Hey Phil, if you need a truss rod cover for your Mirror, I'd love to send you one." And I had to respond with, "Jean, I really appreciate that. I have the truss rod cover. I just have to adjust the neck on so frequently enough that I just hate putting the cover back on." Now, and I don't mean daily. I have to adjust that neck at least twice a year minimum, obviously winter then summer, and then sometimes once or twice. So I'd say once a quarter would be rounding up. So obviously I could put the truss cover on, but like I said, I'm lazy like a lot of people. Plus I do this for a living. So sometimes on my personal time, the last thing I want to do is work on something, right? I just want to play my music and have fun. But to me, the guitar is, when you think of PRS, I think of gorgeous, beautiful quilt tops and exciting guitars. And this guitar is just a piece of mahogany and then this black pickguard and just nothing. Same thing. Same with SGs. I love the way Gibson Les Pauls look. To me, when I look at the I'm pointing at one right now, the Gibson Gold Top. To me, the Gold Top is like this most iconic guitar, and yet I love the SG. This guitar that looks like, to me, like a bad Batman logo, right? It's just something I don't love. But that's what I'm saying is, over time, I've learned that. That's not what I value, the way it looks. The way it looks to me now is becoming more of like a wall art thing. I just love looking at it, then I'll put it on the wall and I stare at it, and then I play the guitar that I love playing. So I don't know if that's what your question was going for, but you said philosophically. So philosophically, I think a guitar to me is about how much I love playing the neck, and then how much it sounds. And then after that, everything just becomes just this thing that I deal with. So if that helps. Okay. All right. I got some moderators sending me some questions. Okay, so this comes from Rue, who says, Phil, my best player is my player grade Fly Deluxe. Player grade, and I'm assuming this is what Rue means about this. So you guys know, player grade to me means it's distressed, it's used, it's played. Player grade to me is like the biggest badge of honor there is. That's why I think relic guitars are so great, are popular, because it's instant player grade. It looks like you've been playing it. So Rue's favorite guitar is their Parker Fly Deluxe and player grade, which is well used. What do you think of rewinding pickups and modifying electronics to be more modern sound? Would you, what to do? I mean, no. I mean, you don't have to rewind the pickups. So you understand, you could just change out the pickups in your Fly. It's not a big deal. I've done it many times. It's not rocket science or surgery by any of that means. The big thing is they take the legs off the pickup. You have to cut them off. And depending on what model you have and what pickups you have, most likely 2 or 4 of the screws that are in the pickup and the actual the slugs, not the slugs, I'm confusing you. Like for instance, if you have a Parker Fly with a Seymour Duncan, you're gonna have a row of slugs and a row of screws. Two of those screws are gonna come out, and longer screws are put in that thread through the pickup into the body. That's how they mount the Parker pickups, by the way. They look like they're floating in there, but they're mounted through the actual pickup. And you can either, some companies like Seymour Duncan and DiMarzio, if you contact them directly, they still make or will make you the Parker version pickups of some version of pickup you want, send them to you. And if you have a Parker with DiMarzio's specifically, I love those pickups. Those are made specifically for that guitar. So if you don't like them, I understand, but I like them. So I'm the opposite. I went forever trying to find, eventually getting a Parker that had the DiMarzio pickups over the Duncans, as much as I like the Duncan versions as too. And then electronics wise, you can't really make it more modern. I mean, you could take out the piezo system. You can take out the piezo system if you want, bypass that and make it, so it doesn't have the board in there. Maybe go to a new system, but it's not going to make the acoustic sound any better. The major differences in the acoustic tone is not going to be that module. It's going to be the crystals. There's little crystals, quartz crystals or whatever on the saddles, and like the Go saddles, there's newer technology that may be a little better than what version you have of the Parker Fly, especially an older one. But again, I don't know what the advantages of that is. I have rewired and redone so many Parker Flies that I don't ever want to do them again. I don't know why, but I got really into Parker as a dealer, and I was a repair guy, and then we would sell Parkers, and I found out it doesn't take long for people that have Parkers to realize that most guitar techs they would take them to would look at them and go, "Get that the hell out of here." So I made a point to learn about them and even go see how they were built and stuff. And it's one of those things where I don't even know if I remember all the stuff I remember from back in the day from working on them, but I remember at the time I used to love working on them. And there was probably an ego thing. Like I feel like I could always fix them for somebody. But now parts are scarce. So who knows? Maybe they'll come back. I just recently heard they might come back under new ownership. We'll see. That is so rumor though. So, there's no like official anything. That's just there's a rumor that seems somewhat legit. Legit meaning not the source is legit. The sources, I've heard actually two different sources. I'm not saying the sources are so legit, but the story behind how it might be come back seemed a little possible. Okay. Okay. Jay's question says, hey, thoughts on balanced tension strings? Also, are Stringjoy and Elixir coated strings comparable in length of time when they remain playable? Thanks for doing what you do. Okay, so Jay, we talked about balanced tension strings before. I've played them and experimented with them many times. Picks and strings are something that I have put a lot of money into, because I always like the idea that if you want to do something dramatic for a little bit of money, picks and strings, man, you can do a lot. Like if you got this desire to, get gear and check out tones and do things and experiment with things. I mean, it's an expensive hobby, it could be, that's for sure. And you can buy pedals and amps and guitars and bridges and pickups, and you can go that round. But sometimes, man, you can do a lot with just $10 in strings and $10 in picks. I mean, $10 in either strings or picks will literally dramatically change things. Like I've said, I've done tons of videos. That's why I do them. In the past, I would do these videos where I would just talk about strings out of nowhere or just a pick. And the reason I do that is because I realize, like, I think I appreciate that some people like my channel and they watch it on the regular. Okay, there's not a lot of people that are going to watch it on the regular, but I appreciate the ones that do. And I also appreciate that I can only talk about $3,000 and $4,000 guitars, or $2,000 amps, or $500 guitars, to the point where some people just can't, like it's a lot of bombardment, like, to just be bombarded all the time with like what the FOMO, like, oh, you're not happy unless you have a $4,000 guitar. You're not happy unless you have a $300 guitar. You're not happy unless you have a $500 amp. You're not happy unless you have this. a $200 pickup. And sometimes it's not what I think that's about, but I can see where some people would actually kind of wear them down. So that's why sometimes I like to say like, oh, and here's a pick. Oh, here's a pack of strings you can try. Maybe you have, maybe you're, what's $5? See where it takes you on your musical journey. So strings, balance tension is something I've experimented with many times in the past. It wasn't for me, but I will tell you, because I'm old, and more importantly than old, I've been tenured. In other words, I've been playing guitar for long enough to where certain things like that, even if they are better, they just feel weird to me. You're just used to it. It's kind of, it's nothing wrong with that. But I love the concept of balanced tension. Like I've talked about in the past, I once made the comment that balanced tension essentially and fan fret systems are essentially the same concept. I had a guy freak out, of course, as people do, and he's like, "How could you say that? The differences, they're technically different." And yeah, you're technically different, but they're still trying to achieve the same kind of thing, which is equalizing some kind of feel, or the way it feels, or making it feel a little bit more, I don't want to say accurate, but even. So balanced tension would be even. So balanced tension strings. If you've never tried balanced tension strings, and if you guys don't know what that means, because sometimes what that means is they are selling packs of strings with different gauges. Okay. So obviously, like if you're familiar with 9 to 42, it's going to be like 9, and then it's like a 13, and then a 17 or a 16, then a 22, then a 32, then a 42, right? And I could be off, and I'm doing off memory. Same thing with 10 to 46, right? You got 10, and then same thing. It's like, a 13 or whatever, and then it's going to be a 17, and then it's going to be a 24, right? No, a 24. Yeah, I think 24, then a 36, then a 46, right? So balanced tension is basically where they change different gauges of strings out throughout the pack to kind of make this feel more balanced, right? And not so one string doesn't feel really tight and one string feel very loose, right? Comparatively speaking, it's going to feel more equalized. So give it a try. Absolutely. Like I said, here's my best advice. You could get a set on, go to sweetwater.com, free shipping. They're having a Labor Day sale. By the way, I put a link to the Labor Day sale if you guys want to check it out. Remember, you guys, as I've always said, if you want to save money, call them and you'll save more money than you will if you just buy online. But if you use my links, obviously I get a kickback. However, like I always say, I would rather you save 10% or more on your end calling them in than giving me like 1 or 2% or whatever they give me for the link. However, on Labor Day sales and stuff like that, they're probably not going to discount past the sale. So if you're going to click and buy any Labor Day sale stuff, I put the link down there so you can support the channel and it doesn't cost anything to you. But again, do that on your own accord. The amount of money we get from that, although I appreciate it, it's not enough for you to put any effort into that at all. Okay, just do whatever's best for you. And if it works out that somehow I get a link clicked and I make $13 over the weekend, God bless you for that. But back to the strings. If you can go and buy a pack of balanced tension strings for free freight and try a set and see how that goes, or go to your local mom and pop shop if they have them in stock and try them. But so that's my thought on that, Jay. To your second part of your question, String Joy versus Elixir coated strings comparable in length of time and how they remain. I have tried Tessie Switch is selling the Master 8 strings that were coated. I did a review on those. I really like them. They're really good. So be aware they have the Master 8 strings that are coated. And I've tried and I like them. I've tried and I liked Elixirs. I've used those. The String Joy coated strings I've never tried, so I can't speak to it. So in other words, I can't speak to it. But what I will tell you is that when it comes to coated strings, because I do use coated strings, I predominantly use D'Addario coated strings. And what's funny is when I tried the Master 8 strings, I really liked them, but then I ran out, and then it was just easy because Sweetwater, I clicked the button one day and I added some. I got some D'Addario coated strings, and I like them as well. I don't notice how long the coated strings last. I hear all kinds of things over the years, about how the coating wears off and this coating lasts longer. I've said this before. Everybody has a reason for using strings the way they use, whether they're coated or not coated. I use coated strings for guitars I don't play. I think I've explained this before, maybe I haven't. So let me explain it now. I have a lot of guitars. I have a YouTube channel about guitars, so it's going to be a thing. Obviously, there's a lot of guitars behind me right now. So not all the guitars can be played all the time. I'd love to tell you, like, I play every guitar every day. That's not true. I go through moods, like I said. I'll play one guitar all the time, and then I play, another guitar. Things rotate in. But sometimes some guitars just don't rotate in. They, get played once every 6 months or something like that. It's a while. And then the worst thing can happen to me is I pick up a guitar, especially because I live in a dry climate, so it shouldn't be a big problem, but it does happen. I pick up a guitar that I haven't given any love or attention to because I want to, hey, that's a guitar. I love it. I should try it, play it again. And the strings are dead. So if I know that about a certain guitar, I'll put coated strings on guitars that I know I don't use very often because exactly that. I'll go to them like 3-4 months later, whatever, pick them up, and the strings are still fresh. They don't sound dead, and they don't. And how they sound is important, but also like you can hear when a string's like dried out, and I don't want to say dried out. You know what I mean? When it's dead, it's not only dead sounding, but they tend to break. There's all kinds of issues going on with them. So I tend to put the coated strings on them. I think a lot of you guys probably have suggestions for coated strings, but the 3 that I will probably suggest are the Master 8s, the Elixirs, and the Diodarios, because I've tried all 3 of those and I like them all. Maybe I'll try Stringjoy one time. I'm curious. I'll look after this weekend. I'll look to see how much the Stringjoy ones are, because Stringjoy strings generally are $15 a set, non-coated. So I don't know what the coated could be, but coating strings have gotten really expensive. So like I said, I like the Stringjoy guys. So I've said that before. I like the strings and I like them. So I just haven't tried the coated strings. So I can't speak to them direct, that product SKU directly. Mike loves robots. All right, Mike. I hope in a healthy way, man. That robot, that's one of those sayings could go weird on you real fast. But I like the sign-on. Okay, I've got a great LTD black metal guitar that has stock Seymour Duncan Black Winter pickups. I like that pickup. I feel it's muddy sounding. Any suggestions? It's funny because I wouldn't think of the Black Winter as being a muddy sounding guitar, but if you have the metal guitar and maybe you're running lots of gain. My experience is pickups that have a little kick to them or they push a little hard, and heavy distorted amps are no mas, no good. I like pickups that are more PAF, even for high gain metal. In fact, I'm the opposite. I like the Super Distortion by DiMarzio, okay? It's a classic pickup. To me, I like it in the way that I like old 80s guitars, where it just takes me back to a time in my head where that was a thing I loved. And for a minute, I can almost try time travel back to when I had hair. And so and I can almost feel the hair, the wind in my hair when I'm playing. Anyways, my whole point is that as much as I love those, I tend to like DiMarzio, the Fortitudes, the PAF 36th anniversaries, Seymour Duncan 59, Seymour Duncan Seth Lovers, the Bare Knuckle Mules. I tend to go towards those pickups for almost every sound. That's where I like to lay there. And what I've found is that although I can sit here and highlight all of these pickups, why one's good and one's better, or one I think is cool, and go through all the variations, what I found is most players, you pretty much that's the pickups you want. There's a reason why I don't have a good analogy. I wish I did. There's a reason why players gravitate to so many products, because they like an SM57 and SM58, a Ibanez Tube Screamer, or if you want to say the Maxon Tube Screamer, whichever makes you happy, Tube Screamer. There are products in the guitar industry, like a lot of other industries, that are just mainstays. There's a reason why they become the product they are. I don't mean the holy grail products, these exotic products that we all worship. I'm talking about just practical, like, man, you got an SM57, SM58, you're good. You can make that work. Is there better? Absolutely. Is there worse? Absolutely. This is going to get you there. When it comes to pickups, there's a reason why, it's like Sean Murphy saying the Lindy Fralin pure PFs. Exactly. Same thing. I'll agree. Look, anybody who makes a quality PAF pickup, that PAF pickup is going to be pretty good at handling most situations. It just does. Think about it. I want you to think of it the way I see it, and maybe it'll help you. These amps that we love, they were tested with something, right? I mean, somebody dialed in. Like I've said this before, the technology in an amplifier or a pedal, doesn't matter. It's not complicated. It's been replicated to holy hell. So what really makes them great is the ear of the designer. It's like I said, like I like Dave Friedman's ear, right? Because I will play Dave Friedman stuff and I'll go, I really like this. And obviously it's his ear, right? The most of the stuff he builds is a modification, or it's built off a platform of modification of somebody else. And you could say that about Joe Morgan, who's also, I think, got a great ear. John at Bad Cat, I think he's got a great ear. There's a lot of guys that, just like I said, when it comes to amps, they have, I think, they have great ears, and they make an amp that sounds really good. They use something, right? And my guess is in most cases they use the most traditional pickups because that's what they tend to use. In fact, I'd interview pedal builders, and almost every pedal builder would say they'd use a Hot Rod Deluxe to kind of run their pedals through. Dave Friedman actually said that when they did the BEOD, they ran a Hot Rod Deluxe. Why? It's a great platform amp. It's common, which means a lot of players have it. So if you're making this product for the players, right? Think about so many products are designed for the end user in mind. Some products are a concept of the designer wants this, okay? Like when I think of Thomas Blug, if you guys are familiar with Thomas Blug, is like, I have an idea. And it's like, I'm going to make this thing that's in my head, and he makes it. And then now it's about finding people who like what he likes, okay? But most designers, they're the opposite of that thought process. They're like, what does the average guitar player need, right? Or want? And how do I make that for them? And so that they're making this product that's more broad. No one wants to make not no one, but the majority of companies and designers and builders don't want to make a product that is so niche that only, 5 people want to buy it, unless you're Dumble. So, but you get the idea. Like there's a difference in Dumble's logic and Fender's logic. Leo Fender's like, how can I sell a guitar and amp to every single person on the planet? And Howard Dumble's like, how can I get every single person on the planet to want this thing that they can't have? Right? Totally different thought process. So there's a reason why I gravitate them. As you guys know, I have this huge collection. I have 400 and something pickups, and I have the ability to just interchange them and listen to them. And over the years, there are things that are outrageous and cool, and there's totally great reasons to love so many different pickups for so many reasons. But I really believe a lot of players are to something that doesn't, they won't go to the thing that's obvious. Like I go, you should try a PAF style pickup, like an Alnico 5 PAF. I'm a big Alnico 5, but Alnico 2, Alnico 4 PAFs are great too. And all the versions, like I said, whether you like Larry DiMarzio's version or Seymour Duncan's version, or like I said, Bare Knuckles or Lindy Fralin, or, you name it. There's just so many builders out there. But everybody's version is pretty close. There's just something a little sweeter on the high end, little bit boomier on the bass end. There's just something about them maybe that helps you kind of get there. But I really recommend most players go there and try them. So the Fortitude pickup, it's an interesting thing. The Fortitude pickup, I did a video about that. It's a really good pickup. I really like it. I have 3 of them in 3 guitars with the Fortitudes in the bridge. The Fortitude is essentially a modified PAF that DiMarzio did. And I didn't know this at the time, but I know this now. Okay. I just plugged it in and I liked it. That's all that really mattered. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the whole know your gear logic is find what you like, find out why you like it, and then, use it, right? Put it to use. Put it to use is the best way to say it, right? That pickup, what it does, it's interesting, is not only does it have a slightly more winds than a normal PAF, so it's got a little bit more, right? A little more push on the amp. It uses, on the screws, it uses bigger screws. They're thicker. They're not longer, they're thicker. Much thicker than a normal screw that you would see in the bobbin. And the reason is it changes the magnetic field and raises the resonant peak of the pickup. And funny enough, that once you kind of realize that, once I realized that, then it was like, oh, well, then there's a reason why I like it, because then there's these other 6 pickups that I absolutely love, and they all have that same resonant peak, and they're all kind of doing the same thing. So although I think you could geek out like I did and go down these kind of roads, I think in the grand scheme of things, you should just buy a PAF. I think that was the longest way to just say buy a PAF. But so Mike Loves Robots, I would say definitely look into maybe going with something a little bit less output and let the amp do the work, especially for metal. It works a lot, right? So far with two R's. Far with two R's says, hey, new guitar month. Oh, new guitar day a month ago. Okay, I'm on the same page. After having electric for years, I got a great deal on a Dean Colt semi-hollow. Thoughts, $300. Man, I mean, semi-hollow guitars are my faves. I don't think I have more semi-hollows than solid body guitars, but I am close. It is 40% semi-hollows, 60% solid bodies. I have a lot of semi-hollow guitars. I love semi-hollows. I'm a big fan. Not only because they're lighter, I just like them. I like them to play them when I'm not plugged into an amp. I like that they're a little louder acoustically. I just like everything about them. This one was, Phil, thoughts on the Marshall JTM 45. Didn't we do that last week? Reissue? We did a little bit. What bands, tones do you associate with it? Thanks for the love of the show, long-time subscriber. I got asked by a buddy of mine, good friend. He texted me. So you're the third person to ask me about the JTM 45. So what they're talking about is the new JTM 45 20-watt head from Marshall. And I have done the Marshall roundup. I bought the Silver Jubilee. I bought the Studio. I bought the Vintage, which was the Plexi style 20-watt amp. And I ended up with Friedman. That's where I ended up. I want a Marshall logo. I love the Marshall look. There's just something so freaking cool about that. But when it comes down to again, kind of like I love the way a guitar, I want a guitar that looks really cool, but this guitar does it for me. When it comes to an amp doing what I need it to do in a Marshall type scenario, I like Friedman. This, take it for whatever you want. I have not tried the JTM 45, so I can't say that I wouldn't like it. But I can't imagine it's going to be a lot different than the Studio or the Vintage, the Studio Vintage. And I think if I was going to guess what's going to different is probably has a little bit more low end, bottom end on it, and it thumps a little harder when you hit it, and it maybe not as bright. However, I would not pick either one of those over a Friedman Runt. So that's my 2 cents. So I like I said, I had the Runt, and then I had the JJ, the Jerry Cantrell one, and which is essentially a Runt with more gain. So if you need more gain than the Runt, just get the JJ. It's the same clean channel, same dirty channel, just has more gain. So there's more gain on tap. But to me, I could do everything I need Marshall-wise with the Runt at any volume level. Loud, quiet, you name it. The only thing you don't get is a Marshall logo. So, and I've kind of gone too far down the Marshall road. If you watch this channel, since I've had this YouTube channel, I've probably purchased, no exaggeration, 12 Marshall amplifiers. That's really so I told you guys my wife did a podcast with me, and there's more coming. There's a 2 and a 3 part, and in one of the questions, I can't give it away, but one of the questions, she has a discussion about amplifiers and what she doesn't, I don't want to say she doesn't like, but she doesn't really appreciate my obsession with basically keep going down these roads of what basically end in failure. Like I keep buying all these Marshalls in hopes that I'm going to finally find this Marshall that does a thing. The whole time having an amp, really all I was doing is just buying Marshalls, trying to find a Marshall that could do everything my Friedman was doing. And then, because I just wanted a Marshall. Because again, it's a Marshall, And as a bass player, I had the same problem with Ampeg, by the way. I just, I love Ampeg. I've owned tons of Ampegs, and they're a great product. Like Marshall, they're a great product. If you want one, get one. But when it came to bass, same thing. I found myself forcing myself buying more Ampegs again, trying to get them to sound the way I want and be the way I want and be as light as I want and do all this stuff. And ultimately, I really wanted something that looks like an Ampeg that sounds like something else. And same with a Marshall. I want something that looks like a Marshall but sounds more like what Friedman's doing, which is just an amp that to me just sounds like it does classic Marshall, does the modern Marshall. It does clean. It's expensive, but so is the Marshall. So that's the killer. There's no like if you guys have suggestions for lower price Marshall sounding amps, I totally suggest, love the suggestions. Please put them in there for him. But the Marshalls, so you can buy a used Runt for less than you can buy any of that JTM 45 or any of those other Marshalls. And so just keep that in mind. Oh my goodness, where did I lose track? Okay, here it is. Grumpy Mike Guitar. What's up, Grumpy Mike? He says, I don't remember seeing the natural finish PRS on your wall before. Is this new or just haven't missed it? Yeah, it's old school, Grumpy. Right? I'm sorry. I thought of Grumpy and I thought of a dad joke I heard the other day. So it was I got mugged. I got mugged by 6 dwarfs. None of them were happy. Ha! This is a dad joke. So, it's because it's been with me forever. I've had it before YouTube. I've had it this whole time. It gets put away for periods of time because I get kind of burnt out. Again, it's my main guitar, and I get burnt out and I play something else. But it's back in rotation right now. It's out, and so is my copper Strat. There's the original copper Strat, and of course, then there's the copper Penny Delos that is basically mimicked off of that guitar, and that's out. Same reason. I was just pulling out some old guitars to play some stuff and do some stuff. I have some crazy vids coming up, and I wanted to try some stuff. So, but that's it. It's a PRS Mira, so Ray says, what are your thoughts on the KDH going after Victory and Andertons? So KDH, on that channel, we've talked about KDH before. He's a channel where he does these kind of like investigation kind of deep dives on sometimes channels, sometimes the industry, businesses. I really enjoyed the one he did. He did a couple on Dean guitars. Look, I'll tell you a couple things. So I'm going to say a couple things. First, I did a shout out once before, and it's a good time to do that now. And I'm going to do this shout out right now, and I want to make sure I got the channel right. The channel is, I can't find it. I found it. Okay, it's called Blues Lawyer Confessional is the channel. Okay, I will put a link. I'll timestamp it right now. There's a channel out there. It's a very small channel. Okay, and it's called Blues Lawyer Confessional. It's a lawyer and sometimes another lawyer, and they talk about the industry and things that happen in the industry. And I highly recommend checking them out. They don't get a whole lot of subs. They're, like I said, they stay small because they're not really clickbaiting. They're not really after anything. They're just talking about things. And I find that if that's something that you're interested in, like sometimes I'm interested in, I would check out their channel. They had a very interesting video the other day about the ODD and OCD pedal. As you guys know, I reviewed the ODD pedal by Warm Audio, and if you guys are into YouTube, like I'm into YouTube, JHS Josh Scott did a whole conversation about it. But these guys were talking about the trademark dress and whether or not, did they go too far, just like kind of Josh Scott did, but they did it from a lawyer perspective. And hey, look, it's an interesting thing to watch. So there's always going to be that. On the KDH thing, I've got to tell you first, it's easy part. I'll stick with the easy part. I really enjoyed Lee Anderton's response video. I think he handled it very classy, and he did a really good job. And I think he handled everything the way you probably should. He did a really great job. I think that whether you're going to feel, look, I already know this is a hot topic. I don't walk into this stuff like blind. Obviously, there's a lot of people are going to be on. This is one of those divided 50-50 things, and you can't make anybody happy. So let me just give it to you this way. I'm not a big proponent of all the time what those videos are, the KDH style videos. As I've talked about KDH, I like him generally speaking and his channel, but I'm not a big proponent. I've said, I even gave him a cautionary tale, like I would, as a more tenured YouTuber, be careful about what you're inviting, as not legally wise, but just as viewers, right? This kicking the beehive all the time, it might get them stirred, but sometimes they sting you. I've learned that the audience that likes you can hate you just as fast, and it gets really weird, and you're bringing in the weird element. However, that being said, these subjects that are tough, that's why you guys have such a strong opinion. Some of you guys, half of you guys right now are like, I hate that guy, and the other half are like, I love that guy. And whether you hate or like what he does, just be aware of what he's doing, whether you're for it or against it. He has the right to do it. That's basically how it works. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. I understand that. But also, it's subjects that sometimes need to be brought up. The truth is, as someone who's on this platform and been on this platform for a long time, my biggest concern, like people ask me all the time, like it's a thing, like I get asked it all the time. What do you do when YouTube ends? How long do you think YouTube's going to be around? How long I'm like, I don't know. I've always said this. In fact, I've been saying this. I'll say this to you guys. I've said it to every single one of my family members. I will quit YouTube before YouTube dies. Not because I'll see it coming, because I'll burn out. Like I've almost burned out a couple times now. It's hard to keep the momentum going. But my biggest concern on YouTube has never been whether I'll be relevant, whatever the hell that means. I mean, I hate being on camera, so you can imagine there's no loss there. You can't even get me to take a picture if I'm not on YouTube, because I just don't like cameras. This isn't something I sought out. I just kind of landed on it, and I love gear so much that if this is what I got to do to be around gear, I'll just do this. But my point is, one of my biggest concerns from the day I started my channel to this day now, and nothing's actually changed, is actually, in my opinion, some places got worse, is I've worked really hard to be transparent. I work very hard to tell the truth, and it sounds so great. Everybody always applauds people for doing that. But the reality is your applauds or whatever your thank you so much, I do appreciate them, still doesn't take the sting out of, the repercussions that come from having an opinion publicly. And my strongest opinion has been about transparency. Before YouTube even had a button that said product sponsored, I had logos on my channel saying this product was sent to me, this company loaned it to me, this company, right? Because I was a person watching YouTube. As I've said, I started my channel watching all the channels that, like Scott Grove and Gearman Dude, right? In the Blues, the Tone King, Chapman. I was Glenn Fricker. I was watching all these channels. Fluff. And I was like, this is great. And then for some reason, like I said, through my friend and stuff, I started making videos. My point is that I think there's a necessity out there to have some checks and balances, because I've had on this channel, since I've been doing this, I've had companies, and I've talked about this on the podcast many times over the years. I've had companies flat out tell me to lie, and I didn't do it. And there's repercussions for that. The repercussions are I never got access to those products again, and then I had to buy those products out of my own pocketbook. There's companies who, don't like what you say. There are all kinds of things, but more importantly, all that stuff doesn't matter. What really matters is this. I sometimes have to keep myself in check and say the right thing, and then I still get people going, you're a corporate shill, or they say whatever about channels, and they say that basically, you're lying. And I know I don't take that personal. You know why? Because I know why you're saying it, because there is somebody out there lying, and those lies, they have repercussions. If you take into perspective the fact that I've been repairing guitars for 20 years, and I tell you that this is a perfect product, and you buy that product and it's defective, I caused that problem, and I take that very seriously. And so I don't want you to believe everything I say. That's not where I've ever come from. But the reason why it's important that everybody be transparent is so that this community thing can last longer. Because what will kill YouTube, what will kill this, is the same thing that killed Guitar World reviews. When I used to have a stack, and I don't want to pick on Guitar World. I know I'm picking on somebody, but I just want to tell you, because this is my first realization. My first realization that something was wrong in the world in the guitar world was Guitar World reviews, because I had boxes, stacks, like this tall off the floor of Guitar Worlds. And I would read every one cover to cover every time. And then I reread them. And one day it hit me like a ton of bricks that every review, you can go back now and go back, every review was a 3. Like, it was like, no, it wasn't a 3. There was nothing lower than 3. I could not find out hundreds of issues of Guitar World. I could not find a review that got anything lower than a 3. So it would be like a 5, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 3, a 5, a 3. But no one got a 2 or a 1. And I was like, that's just really weird. How come no one gets 2s or 1s? And then it started me thinking, like, is it because those companies pay and then Guitar World doesn't want to upset the people who pay them, which is a factor. I will tell you this, and I'll be very, again, always transparent about stuff. I have a lot of YouTubers that are friends, and I love them dearly, and I'm just as fault as anyone else when it comes to a lot of things and mistakes and problems. But I will tell you that I have had more companies never work with me again for a bad review, which is contrary to everything I hear on YouTube, that if you give bad reviews, they don't buy your opinions. They just buy your channel or your time or your viewers, and they don't care what you say. My experience is they absolutely care. And not only sometimes will they light you up for it, they will, if you're lucky, they light you up so you can at least maybe try to salvage some kind of relationship to go more forward of some kind of mutual respect. My experience is 90% of the time you just never hear from again. You're ghosted and blocked out. That's just how it works. It can't be a coincidence. I can't have a channel that gets, that has 250,000 subscribers and 100 million views, and a company sends me a product and I do a video where they sold gazillions of them and it got hundreds of thousands of views, and I did critique it a little hard, and then I never hear from them again, and they never want to talk to me again, and that's just all coincidence, apparently, right? So I know I'm going on a tangent, and it's not what I really meant to do. I apologize for that. But the reason I tell you that is not to kind of like tell you, hey, KDH or whatever. I just want to say, look, I think Lee Anderton handled it well. I think that it's important that these things get discussed to some degree. If you don't like it, don't watch it. I know I'm kind of forcing it on you now because it came up, but this is the show that we have. The show we have is you bring up stuff, and I don't wince away from it. Whatever you bring up, I talk about. Because again, it's in hope of transparency. I don't like talking about it. I'll be honest, I thought about not doing this show this week because the two biggest subjects this week both sucked. And I was like, and I'm a betting man, I guess. And I was thinking, man, I'm going to be talking about both those sucky things instead of guitars. But in this case, I think whatever you think of KDH, I think the video did cause a positive thing. I don't think the video itself and the whole situation was positive, but I don't think it's anybody's fault. If you guys, and if you want to know more about it, I don't even want to talk about it. You just have to go look up and find all this stuff on yourself. But long story short, I think we're all better for it. I think Victory is a better brand for it. I think Anderton's a better brand for it. I think Lee's a better person for the way he handled it. And I think, I think we're all better for it. And I think that if we don't have somebody out there checking something that's being said, who's going to know? You guys are all just going to assume everybody on YouTube's full of shit. And then where does that leave us all? You're not going to trust any of us. So that's what it is. Okay. So I hope we covered it on that. But like I said, there you go. All right, let's get off the subject and go to guitars again. Guitars. Please, what do we got? By the way, Ray, appreciate the question. I know it was a hot topic, and I appreciate you. Like I said, I appreciate you not kid gloving it. Just ask me right out, and I'll give you the answer right out. Jason says, "Hey, just did my first full fret job complete with bone nut. Guitar plays great." Fantastic, right? That's a win. The fret job, I think, is the biggest milestone when it comes to repairing guitars, right? I think the first time you install pickups, you feel pretty good. A setup, sure, you feel pretty good. To me, cutting the nut, but to me, when you refret a guitar, that's the first step to I can actually probably build one of these then, right? Because that's the hard part. If you look at it, so many builders out there actually don't do necks. That's a little fun fact for you out there. A lot of builders are notoriously known for they do everything but the necks. So that's really common. I think one of the famous builders I think of, they're known for that's what they do. They do the bodies and then they buy the necks and then they put it together, and they do. I think, and I could be wrong. So sometimes I caution myself because I don't want to like say anything that's incorrect. But I was told, I thought I understood that Crook guitars, like Crook, like Brad Paisley was playing Crook for a while. They were like the Paisley Tellys. I thought Crook, if I remember correctly, was it PJ something? I can't remember. It's PSM or something. Made the necks in Virginia, and then Crook would buy the necks and then put the guitars together. So I'm just pointing them out, not to villainize them. It's not a villainized thing. It's real common in the industry, like I said, because necks are hard, right? And sometimes it's not their thing. Sometimes people are really good at finish work or putting the setups. Roger Sadowski makes basses, but at one point he started, I think, with just putting pieces together. I think at the beginning is, I think what Roger said to me, some degree like that, when the very, very beginning when he was a repair guy. So repair guys sometimes do that stuff, right? They'll put things together parts. So very impressive that you did the refret, because that's the first step to pretty much being able to build an entire guitar from scratch. He says, thank you for all the knowledge and confidence to do it. I practice on an old neck as you suggested. That's awesome, man. Oh, you practice on an old neck. So in other words, he took my advice, which is how the best way to train yourself to refret a guitar is take an old crappy neck or just an old neck, something you don't care about, and do it, even if you have to do it a couple times. And believe it or not, it gets harder each time you do it because those slots get worse to kind of fix. Matt says, Ola England just reviewed some Ernie Ball 7 gauge strings. Oh, Ernie Ball 7 gauge strings. Are they a new product? So you're talking about 7 gauge strings. I did a video on 7 gauge strings as well, long time ago, on how to, to break them and, how easy do they break. We couldn't break them, by the way. I think Rick Beato plays 8s, right? I think that's the thing. 7s were the Billy Gibbons thing. I found them just totally nuts. The 7s. So I've tried the 7 gauge strings. It was just too much. In fact, it felt like human hair. It was like nothing, right? It was like I was like playing nothing, and everything goes sharp. I'll check out Ola's video. I'm curious to see what he had experienced. My experience was, actually, it's funny. Like, actually, you know what? There's a really important story that I better not skip over when it comes to 7 gauge strings. So I did a video years and years ago about 7 gauge strings and the experience I had with them. And then I did a video maybe it's that same video or the video of the next week, where we took all kinds of strings and tuned them up until they snapped. And what we found was the 7 strings didn't snap any faster or later than any other string. So they had the same strength. I did that video, and that's the angle I came out with it, which is like, what did I learn playing 7 gauge strings? And I had Matt, one of my guitar teachers, and I had Rex, another guitar teacher, do it. And I just had all these people try it for a week with me and see what we thought. And we all had the same conclusion, which it was different. It was weird, but it's not something we would stick with. I remember a couple weeks after that video came out on YouTube, this guy came into my store from Flagstaff. Just so you guys know, for reference, Flagstaff's about a 2.5 hour drive from where I live. So, it's not it's not like he didn't just drive up. And he came because he saw the video, and he has arthritis so bad that he goes, I got to try 7 gauge strings. He goes, I didn't even know they existed. I saw your video. So we sold him a set because we actually had one set left. We're like, okay, here's your set. And he got them. And then he's a great picture of him. He's in a lot of the videos when you see the guys with shirts. He's always standing next to his wife. His wife's blonde. And he's got a New Year shirt. And she's got a New Year shirt. I think hers is red. His is black. And he emailed, when he sent that picture to me, I always remember that picture because he sent it with a letter saying, because of these strings, I can actually play as long as I used to 20 years ago. And I'm actually playing guitar again. Like, I can physically do it. So I felt like I would do a disservice. I didn't share the story that if you guys think about 7 strings, some of you guys are thinking like, oh, it's so weird, it's so light. But I want you to think of it like this. If you do have issues playing guitar for periods of time, there is something I think you should check out, because it did work for him. And, and some people are saying 8s. You can do 8s as well. Same thing. But the 7s are different than 8s. So you guys know. 9s feel bendier than 10s. I think everybody here watching can understand what I'm saying, right? Like you bend, a 10 gauge string, you bend a 9, it feels easier to bend. 8s feel a little bendier than 9s, and they kind of feel really, really easy to bend, right? Like it's effortless, almost. 7s, there is just you put no strength into it. So it's 8s are like if for lack of a better analogy, if 10 gauge strings was a 10-pound dumbbell and 9s were 5 pounds and 8s were a 2-pound dumbbell, 7s are a toilet paper roll. Like it goes right off. It doesn't go like, oh, it's even easier. It's just now it's no effort to play those strings. That's what's weird about that. You'll push them down and you'll feel like you're not even trying. So that's what he discovered, is because of his hand issues, his hand strength issues. He could literally play again. He could push down. And because his hands were not only arthritis, but he had issues with his hands. And so there you go. So that's your answer, guys. So if you're curious about 7s on the weird curiosity, great. But if you're out there and you have some hand issues, I would consider checking them out. Especially if you have multiple guitars, you can throw them on a guitar and see. Give it a shot. Rummy says, on the Heritage versus Gibson, I bought a Heritage 335. I went with the Gibson LP R06. Tried before buying. Better way to go than gear page chatter. Okay, so he tried the Heritage versus Gibson. He bought a Heritage 335. And he says, I went with the Gibson LP R06. Try before buying. Okay. So again, yeah, if you have the ability to try multiple guitars, it helps. Okay. So back to Scent of a Wheelchair's Pillow's question earlier about tuning keys being difficult. He's saying it's a PRS private stock keys that match the wood. In other words, he's got wooden tuning keys heads, which is what I have on my frameless guitars. I mean, you're saying that basically, just because it's a private stock doesn't mean it's going to be great tuning keys. They could have issues. I mean, absolutely. So, and they're going to be expensive to replace. They're hella expensive. Those tuning keys are hella expensive. But if you're having issues, there's no way to really fix them. You can try and call PRS customer service and see if they have a suggestion for you. Again, like I say, sometimes you got to treat guitar companies like car companies, and you're like, hey, I'm having this problem. Is this something you've heard of before? Especially on that year, that model. They might have had a bad batch. They might have a unique batch. They might be aware of something, or they might just be the first time they ever heard of it. But I would check it out. I've never had any real issues with PRS tuning keys before. It's not something I recall even once having an issue with, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So, Dave says, new guitar day, PRS S2 Custom 24, Arize Verde. Cheers. Cheers. Thanks for letting us know. This one is says Diamond. Diamond says, hey, do you still have your Bowden Strandberg? Yes. Okay. So later, this is a podcast and audio only. That was me slanting my head to the one direction to show that it was been hanging on the wall behind my head. Yes. I actually have 2 Bowden Strandbergs now. So yes. He says, I finally bought one after 3 years of saving, and now that it's my only electric guitar, wondering what things would you like to see Strandberg do in the future. I absolutely would love to see Strandberg do more traditional looking guitars in that shape and the neck profile. So kind of like what he did. He has a Strat looking one and a Tele one. I'd like to see more traditional looks in that. So I have some Strandberg videos coming. It's been a huge learning curve. So it's kind of like the Evertune guitar. You know, when a guitar comes to me, I mean, I have experiences with this stuff. Like I said, maybe it's on the bench. Maybe I have a friend that has one. Maybe I played one once, you know, at a guitar store or something. I have some experiences, but that's not how I like to approach videos. I like to approach videos with, you know, seeing all the problems, you know, having it long enough to discover the problems and discover the joys of it, you know, kind of give that feedback. Because not only can you, sometimes when you do these videos, people can't touch this stuff, so it's nice that you can actually show it. It'd be really nice if you were informed about it a little bit, right? Besides, like, yeah, it's purple and it's purple, right? And you know, and so I have the most difficult one. I have the Strandberg with the. I have Evertune in my head now, and I can't think of it. True Temperament frets. And it has been an interesting guitar to play. I have nothing negative or positive to say right now because I want to keep it for the video, but I can say it's been the most interesting thing I've ever done in my life as a musician. I mean, it's literally like it's been insightful on every level. Whoops. Okay. Curtis says, your personal choice for a builder of Badlands import models. I would never do a Badlands import model, so you guys know. Again, like I said, point out again, I'm a partial owner in the company, so I have no, it's like I said, I call it the brain trust. Like it's like a community ownership or a committee ownership. So I can't say anything 100%. Like I can't say, yes, it will definitely be this or not this. But I will tell you this, I would never vote to do an import model, and I would probably do nothing to support that. I wouldn't stop it from happening because I can't stop anything from happening, but that's not what I was interested in, of being involved in it. My interest to be involved was to bring classic 80s style, custom style guitars that were made in the USA and try to see if you can make them to where guys who dream about them all night on Reverb could maybe get their hands on something like that. That was the whole business model. Why? I think it's interesting and unique, and I said why instead of one. One, it's interesting and unique, and two, it doesn't compete with anybody. Which is, I don't want to make what everybody else. I don't want to sell guitars. I don't want to sell things to, right? Like I said, I had a store. Now I do this. I like educating people. I like my channel to be more of an education channel, and so obviously that makes it to where I don't want to be so involved in selling product. But I also like to be involved in things that I think can improve the community. And I thought that was something I can do that would be interesting and, like I said, fun, unique, and learn. And again, become educational because of doing the experience I could share with you guys. So that's kind of the idea. I think anyone that wants to make guitars overseas, has a brainchild to go, hey, let's take a guitar and ship that to, some company, some country or factory overseas and have it made. You could do that. And I don't have any problems with that. Half the 90% of the stuff I review is exactly that. It's somebody just saying, hey, make this overseas. But that wasn't something I found interesting because I think there's so many people who can do that. In fact, like I said, I'll give you a list right now of all the if you want a cool 80s import guitar, I highly recommend the Jackson imports, the Kramer imports, Schecter's imports, although not so much 80s, but some of them are really cool. All that stuff, right? I can go on for days with the cool imports. There are so many great guitars out there that I couldn't even review a quarter of them or a percentage of them. So I don't need to add another brand of that or be part of that. It doesn't serve me, and I wouldn't be able to serve the brand with that capacity. Joseph says, hey, what about Carvin 11 pole single coil? Okay. And 22 pole humbucker pickups. Sure. So Joseph, what he's talking about, let me show you guys let's see if I can just type this in. So if you guys know this, maybe you do, maybe you don't. So Carvin guitars started out, I'm going to show a humbucker. I know you said single coil, but I found a picture of a humbucker and I like to share the humbucker. Okay, so what we're looking at right here is a set of Carvin pickups. These are older Carvin pickups, but they currently still make, I think, a version of this too. What you have here is instead of 6 screws and slugs, you have 12. So you have twice as many. That means it's twice as good. So something to understand about Carvin guitars is Carvin guitars started out as a pickup manufacturer in 1946, the same year that Leo Fender started Fender. And if you look at the history of Carvin, not only did they start as a pickup manufacturer, at some point they even, I think, helped build or even design pickups for Fender in their history. Okay. It's a very interesting story. I did have 5 things you don't know about Kiesel, and I think that's some of that information is in there if you want to watch it. But part of the interesting part of the Carvin story is that Carvin, obviously did pickups first. I think I'm repeating myself. So they did this pickup. Now, I don't know if they were the first to do it. I don't know if they were the only ones to do it. I haven't seen a whole lot of pickups out there that do this, which has twice as many screws and pole pieces. The idea is kind of like a blade pickup. The concept being that when you have 6 slugs or 6 screws, doesn't matter, and they're underneath the string, that think of it like a microphone, right? That's the best way to think about it mentally. The magnet is a microphone. And when you hit the string, it's, picking up the string, right? It's hearing the string. And as you bend the string, you're pulling the string away from the microphone, right? So the argument is that when you do bends on a pickup, that as you bend the string away from the pole piece or screw, you're losing sustain, you're losing sound, you're losing things because it's going farther away. So this concept was obviously to put two, it's twice as many, but also more importantly, not twice as many, but they're on each side of the string so that as you bend the string, you're kind of always constantly above a screw or a pole piece, and therefore you're not dealing with that issue anymore. So, well before, I don't know well before them, but Bill Lawrence did the blade pickup. I mean, that's what you see a blade pickup for, right? Joe Barden does blade pickups. And the blade concept is exactly that, right? You have one continuous bar, and therefore the string's just always over some point of it. That's the idea. Me, personally, it comes down to, yes, that is true, but also your ears are pretty funny things. Like I said, they do things like from memory. So when you do hear a guitar with a single slug or screw piece and you bend it and it kind of you're losing a little bit of that sustain and power, it doesn't matter because everybody's been doing it that way forever. So it kind of sounds right. It sounds like it's supposed to sound. So it just depends. Like I said, I have a huge collection of pickups. I do have some of those carbon pickups, and I do have some blade pickups and other pickups. And I even have another brand that has 12 pole pieces, but I think they're square slugs. And it's one of those things you throw in the guitar and you go, sure, I think I can hear what this is doing and what it's achieving. But at the end of the day, all I really care about is does it sound good and how do I use it? And I didn't see a true benefit from it. And it's probably why, well, actually, I'd love to say that Kiesel probably doesn't use it because, again, a lot of people don't care. But in my experience, that's probably not why they don't use it. I'm guessing. I don't know for a fact. My guess would be they don't use it because it was really not really received very well. Somewhere when the grunge movement came, right up there to that moment, the modern pickups, whether they were the plastic covered pickups like what you see with EMG, or you see the lace pickups, again, plastic covers, you see the blade pickups like through the DiMarzio Fast Tracks or the X2N where they had big blades, right? You have Bill Lawrence, which again has blades. You have these modern looking pickups. And of course, I would consider the Carbons to be that same thing, a modern looking pickup. I feel like as soon as the grunge movement happened, or as soon as that thing killed the 80s look, the modern look at the time, just everybody was done with that. And I haven't seen it come back since. Really, in big numbers. I mean, vintage is still the number. If you want to sell a product to a lot of people, a lot of musicians, make it look old as hell. So new looking stuff, even if that new looking stuff is now 40 years old, is not old enough looking. So that's probably why they go with the 6 slugs now and 6 screws. But that's just my guess. There might be a ton of reasons why they don't. Yeah, and a lot of you guys are mentioning other pickups and stuff. Like I said, there's tons of that stuff. Maybe that's a cool video. I could probably, I did a short with a pickup and it's really well. And then I didn't do any more. And it was one of those things like I tell myself, like, I got to do that again. But, bandwidth, right? I got to get all this stuff done. Alan's Guitar Channel says, I never pulled a trigger on a Kiesel and I'm afraid they're getting too expensive. I definitely think they've gotten a lot more expensive in the last couple of years, obviously, since everything has, right? But I mean, I feel what you're saying too. I feel like I still do it. I still go once every couple of weeks. I'm on Kiesel's website building out a guitar or something, dreaming up some idea. And I find more and more I'm shocked by the price. Like, ooh, I was like, I thought it was going to be $1,800. It's $2,800. You're like, woo, right? So yeah, things are getting more expensive. Comparatively speaking, they're still probably the most aggressively priced for what you're getting for sure. I mean, there's no what you call it? There's no custom build that I know that you can get as inexpensively as a Kiesel and made in USA that I know of. If you guys know somebody, I would not only love to know, but also check them out. So, and maybe some of you guys would be like custom small build, you maybe know some small builders, so it's possible. But as far as I know, no one knows I know does guitars as inexpensively as them for what they're doing. Joseph. Nope, we did Joseph's. Are we done with those? Let's reset this. Okay. So the last super chat, it's going to be Danny Concarney. I don't know why that made me laugh. I'll just do it. It says, let's see. It says, oh, can I answer the super chat that was skipped? Let's find you, Danny. Let's see where you go. Okay. He says, Baba Booey, right? Okay. Oh, we talked about that once from oh man, you could tell I'm at the end of the 2 hours now. The Shock Jock, I can't remember his name. Says, I'm switching tubes from 6L6 to EL34 in my Mesa Electrodyne. Recommendation on tubes. Should I stay on the brand with Mesa? I would. That's what I do. I'm sure here's the deal though. I'm not a tube connoisseur and I'm not a tube junkie, so I'm not going to be able to give you like some expert tube opinion. There's some great amp channels that repair amps, and they probably have some great opinions on that stuff. Again, like I said, I repaired guitars for decades, so whenever I'm pulling from like that experience background, it's going to be in the guitar range more, guitar more so than amps and pedals and stuff. But tube wise, I like no problems with tube amps. That's my big thing. I worry about that more so than the little, getting that little bit more highs, a little bit more lows. I like just knowing it works. All my Mesas have the Mesa tubes in them. I just keep it easy. But there are tons of choices out there. The sad thing is I wouldn't be able to tell you other than this is what I would do. I would stick Mesa tubes in there. Why? I don't have to bias it. I don't have to do anything. They don't have to, you just buy the tubes. The Mesa tubes and just call it a day. So that's the thing. If some of you guys have some suggestions, I would really appreciate you if you put them out there, especially if you tried different things. I read one night I was reading a forum all night about people using tubes other than Mesa tubes and all the experiences they had that were good and why they did it and at the end of it, I came to the same conclusion I'm at now, which is, it sounds great, but I think I'm just going to buy my tubes and stick them in and just call it a day. Declan, what's up, Declan? He says, hey, Phil, is the bridge pickup on your hollow flash with the multicolor bobbins the stock pickups? So he's talking about something that you guys probably have no reference of because he's on Declan's on Patreon, and I think he's a member too as well. I can't remember. So they saw the Evertune video. So that was in the background. That is actually a pickup I wound that's in there. It's a rewound pickup. I took a pickup apart and rewound it. It's technically like when I say like it's a Northern Lights is kind of like a lightly overwound PAF is when I describe that. This is more of an overwound PAF pickup in that guitar. So it's in that guitar. If you probably didn't notice it because it didn't stick out, but on the neck, I think I don't even know what's in the neck. It's a DiMarzio blade pickup of some sort that I grabbed and shoved in there. So why are they in there? I'm experimenting with something, and that was the guitar I grabbed to do it. So the Badlands guitars, I don't own a production Badlands guitar. I tried to buy one of the first ones, the red lines, and it didn't kind of work out. So I have prototype versions, right? I have the ones that were made before they were made. So, although that's cool as hell, right? I mean, it's you own something that's, it's a prototype. It's a prototype. So they're not like, like I don't even have complete like packages of stuff. Like I don't have like all the stuff, like you guys that bought you got the guitar and got all the stuff in there. I don't even have most of that stuff. I have some stuff, because again, this stuff is, we go through it and then we figure out what we're going to do. And then we go to do the production. The problem is like you said, like we told you guys, we can't make more than, but we can barely make what we got orders for. So there was no real logical reason to let somebody like me take one, buy one in place of somebody else. So, to me, those Badlands guitars I have, and the ones you've seen, because there's ones I have here that you haven't seen, because they're prototypes as well, they're just here for me to mess with. That's how I look at them. I don't look at them as like, I got to keep it in a case and it's pristine. It's like number 16 or number 1 or number 28 or whatever. This is number prototype. It's just prototype number, whatever, and it's things on it that, for instance, mine, my Hollow Flash doesn't have locking keys on it because it was built as a prototype before the decision of putting locking key standard. So mine doesn't have locking keys. So he's basically pointing out what you guys will see this week when you see that video. It's in the background on the wall, and if you see it, you'll see something like that. It's because I'm just doing stuff to it, torturing it. It's kind of like how I used to remember. If you guys, old viewers, remember the copper Strat used to get tortured. Like I used to just literally take that guitar apart and put new stuff in it all the time. And I had to drill and dowel the pickguard screws like probably 10 or 15 times over its life. And so probably the Hollow Flash will become some kind of unfortunate victim of that, as much as, like I said, it's part of the deal. So, okay. Did we do it? Did we cover everything? I think we covered everything. Let's see. Hold on. I just want to make sure as I refresh. I did. Okay, so no super chats, which is good. And if I miss one, we'll hopefully grab it next week. I got the moderator pools, which is the ones that they sent me, although I might have missed one or two of those. Oh, look. Hold on. Okay. And Unfreaking Blue says, as Phil said, only upgrade guitars you like. Yeah, well, like I said, it's more of a research thing, It's what it is. I wanted to learn something. I wanted to find something out. I was curious about some stuff. And then, since we're at the, hold on. Oh, okay. And I'll end on this. This is the last question. This is Brian, the moderator, sent this. I don't know if he sent it or if he found one of you guys had it. He said he wanted to know if I'd seen the Schecter Triplebucker pickup. I did. So interesting enough, let's share that. So I saw some YouTube channels talking about it. Didn't Ola do it as well? Triplebucker. I'm going to share this with you. So here it is. So Schecter released some new guitars, and there's some YouTube channels that covered it. I watched some of their videos on it as well. Very cool. So if you search out there, you'll find some. Just do what I did. Go to YouTube, type Schecter 2023 new guitars. Even though you think they're 2024, it's 2023. A lot of companies are going to be releasing because of NAMM. This is maybe a great subject. Because of NAMM and so many companies not participating in NAMM anymore, even though I think NAMM's going to get an uptick in January because the market slowed down and some companies are going to really want to get out there and sell some stuff. A lot of companies still aren't planning to come back. Obviously, Fender's saying they're not coming back. I don't think PRS is coming back. But more importantly, the absence of people going to NAMM, manufacturers going to NAMM, means they've re-strategized their launches. And now it looks like they're doing, for the first time ever in our industry, they're doing something super smart, which is they're releasing new product in fourth quarter. I don't know why I was going to say third quarter, fourth quarter. So right before Christmas, right before the holidays, right at the end of the year. So I think if you're paying attention, which I think you guys are, you're gear freaks like me, and you're paying attention, you're going to see a lot of announcements in the late month of September and early part of October. A lot of announcements for a lot of products. Obviously, some of those products were sent to me, so I already know about them. Some products are not sent to me, but I kind of learned from the grapevine. There's a lot of releases, everything from Music Man to PRS to Schecter, who's already leaked theirs. There's going to be a lot of stuff because it makes more sense to leak it out right before the fourth quarter or at the fourth quarter beginning because the people can buy it versus when everybody spent all their money at Christmas and then January 10th, let's have NAMM in January when everybody's like, I'm still trying to pay off the credit cards from last month. Gonna buy a guitar. So anyway, so Schecter did this. So let's share it. And here it is. So what it is it's a Schecter guitar and it's got what's called a triad pickup, which is 3 single coils in series like a humbucker. So that's what they're doing. This is not a new idea, by the way. This pickup has existed. Alvarez did it when they did a Dana Scoop. I'm gonna pull it up right now. And they did some electric guitars. Alvarez in the early 90s did this. And I'm gonna show you the pickup first. This is the pickup. Here's one on reverb. So it was called the Triforce. You can look underneath it so you can see this was all molded into one piece. They might have done the same thing on the new pickup as well. But essentially what you have is 3 single coils running in series, I believe, right? So it's essentially making it like it's obviously like a humbucker, but then it has other options. I don't know. It didn't go over super well. But keep in mind too, watch. Let's see if I can find the guitar. Oh, here's this. Here's one. Look, we found one. Here's a Dana Scoop. This is currently for sale and this is the pickup that came in the guitar. And they had one that didn't have the cutaway, the extreme cutaway like this. They had the Triforce pickup in it. So this pickup has been done before. And this is just one guitar that I can remember that had it. I mean, there was other brands that I thought had this idea. It's extreme. It's crazy. You know, it's the essentially the one more logic. This is one more pickup. I have a humbucker. I have a Triplebucker. So that's kind of like the idea of it. I think it's cool. Why not? It's fun. It's different, right? Yeah, Sean said Hamer did it as well. That sounds familiar to me. Like I said, I know I've seen it before. This is what I can tell you. As you guys know, I like the Dana Scoops, and I have one, and I really like it. It's, you know, just, again, like a lot of the 80s guitars is a memory from my childhood kind of thing, even though that's a 90s guitar. But I tried the one with the Triforce pickup in it, and I remember not liking it. I remember not thinking anything positive about it. Not that it was bad, I just remember not thinking anything about it. So, I don't know, I'd be curious. Like, you know, it's one of those things. Like, you know, I wouldn't buy that Schecter for me, per se, but if, like, Schecter was to reach out and say, hey, you want to do a deep dive on one? I'd be like, yep. And if you guys, like, you know, said, hey, we really want to see that on the channel, then, you know, we can do that. So that's really cool. Since this is the end of the show, let me do some last couple announcements. Really cool. So we've been working really hard. If you notice, there was no videos this week. That's actually from the hard work that we were doing to start a new fresh start in September, which is our goal is, since the Friday show is every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, the deep dive series will now be every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So you can look forward to every Wednesday, you know, since YouTube doesn't tell you guys when I post content like most of the other creators, because, you know, it's not what YouTube's about anymore. You can just know, like, it's like Friday night, Phil must be doing the podcast. It's Wednesday night, Phil must have done a deep dive. So deep dives will come out on Wednesdays at 3. And then on Mondays, we'll release whatever bonus videos. And that is whether I'm doing a pedal video or something else, or if I have an extra deep dive, that'll be an extra video. So sometimes there'll be videos on Monday, but there'll always be videos now on Wednesday. So Wednesday, this week at 3 o'clock is the Evertune video. So regardless if you get notified or not, if you're here right now, I'm telling you it's going to be there. Just like next Friday at 3, I'll be here talking to you. Next Wednesday at 3, you can check out the new the Evertune video in a Les Paul to see how that video goes. So that's something we wanted to do, and it's really cool. And the other cool thing that we added as a feature going forward on the channel is the Patreons and the members. Now, we worked out a cool deal. I'd love to do it on a bigger community scale. It's just not, it's too hard. I mean, it's already big enough for the patrons. We basically now pick types of guitars that we think were interesting. Like, we give a variety, a smorgasbord, if you will, of guitars we think would be interesting to have on the channel. And we ask them to choose one, and they choose one. And then when they choose it, we present that to companies like Sweetwater and other companies that are maybe retailers or even the companies themselves, and say, our Patreon, our viewer base, wants to see this guitar on the channel, and we'd like to do a deep dive and a giveaway. So our goal is to do one of those a month. I'm happy to say that officially, as of now, we have 3 guitars we're giving away. So for the next 3 months, we'll be giving away a guitar every month, starting this month, of the guitar that's the deep dive. So that's really cool. I'm very excited about that, and I'm hoping to see that expand, so you know, even more so. You know, to more than one a month. I would love it if all the deep dives were just giveaways. That would be freaking awesome. I could just do the video, and then essentially we could get it sponsored and given away. That would be awesome. So we're going to do that. Really cool. The Evertune, since somebody asked me, not here, but during the week, asked Evertune, am I keeping the Evertune? The Evertune is already shipped back to Evertune. Like I said, they sent it for the video, so they were kind enough to let us have it for this period of time, but it wasn't something that they were gonna, you know, give away. So, but we also didn't ask them, and because, you know, we didn't ask them because we didn't have the strategy yet. So this new strategy, I think, is gonna be better. So deep dives on Wednesdays, podcasts on Fridays, bonuses on Mondays, and giveaways every single time we can. I'm hoping that's going to be fun. And I want to thank all of you for doing that, because not only was it your ideas that helped kind of make this, but it's also your support. So on that note, I'm going to let you guys go. Till next week. You guys have an amazing weekend. Play some guitar, have some fun, and know your gear.